2+2 is proud to bring you the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
This week on the PokerCast, Phil Galfond, Max Steinberg, and Supernova Elite Mike Brooks on the VIP Club changes. Now, they're getting their resumes together, but you know who's really screwed? Sven the Porsche dealer, Adam, and Terrence.
Welcome to the 2+2 PokerCast presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. I am your host, A. Schwartz, alongside Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Hello, boys and girls.
And Mr. Terrence Chan in Hong Kong joining us once again via the Skype. We need a Skype app drop or something along that line. So, T, I'm not even close to ready. Can we do this in 4 hours? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, who do you want to host it? Is Ross ready for just to step up? Sure. I mean, I'll try to help you find somebody to host it.
I mean, go have a nap. What's the big deal?
I could do that. I actually have like the renovator coming to my place in 4 hours, so it'll be awesome. Like you'll get to hear me drop through
nice.
like a drill and like a hammering down new brackets and stuff. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Why don't we ask the guy who's coming in to renovate what he thinks of the new PokerStars VIP Club changes?
Yeah, I mean he's probably super disappointed. He's been grinding away on the PokerStars mobile app as he's like installing shelves and stuff like that.
There you go. All right. Obviously, the big story this week, the joke off the top for those old school listeners who remember our Sven the Porsche dealer ad from PokerStars from years ago.
I think you forgot to mention.
He's the happiest guy there is.
I think you forgot to mention who we're sponsored by.
Oh, I said it right off the top.
Did you?
Yeah, should I say it again? It's the PokerStars VIP Club.
Okay.
Most popular VIP club in the world.
It is indeed, yes. Big week, obviously. A lot of stuff happened. We were off last week. We had some personal stuff, so we didn't do a show, which was, there was a lot of stuff to get to. We had the Poker Hall of Fame. But
now we don't give a shit about any of it.
Inductees were announced, but in the meantime, we had some stuff happen. The big changes to the PokerStars VIP Club, as we alluded to. We'll talk in depth about those this week. It's an evolving story, so this will be talked about for more than just one show. So if we don't get to everything, please obviously understand that things are changing. Hopefully, there's could be some things in flux, and the final result might not be known yet. So we'll get to it I'm sure over a period of shows, both with guests and with the three of us talking about it as well. T, you're back you're in Hong Kong. You're heading to Macau, I understand, for the.
Yeah, I'll take a boat over. In fact, I actually took a boat over for one of the prelims, like the 6 Max, which is like I guess it was probably about a $1,500 US buy-in.
Wait! You took a 1.5 hour ferry ride 2 ways for a $1,500 tournament?
I know it was such a. I thought about.
Wow.
I woke up, it's funny you talk about naps. I took a nap when I woke up. I was like, maybe I should go play poker. And then I was like, no, that's stupid. Like, that's bizarre. It's only a 1 hour boat ride. But yeah, you're probably, when you're talking about the cab ride ending there. And then so, I'm just talking out loud. My girlfriend says, sure, let's go to Macau. And then I'm like, oh, well, I guess we're going to Macau. And then I busted in like the first half an hour. So then I took I busted with like jacks to aces. You know how like they always say like ace queen is the walking back to Houston. Maybe jacks can be the ferrying back to Hong Kong.
It's
that's
the
basically how that works.
Because
like the old like ace queen walking back to Houston was like because all the in Doyle's days or whatever, like the Houston oil guys would come over, run ace queen into ace king, like lose all their money, and they'd be walking back to Houston. Maybe I'm the Hong Kong money apparently getting in with jacks against aces, and I'm ferrying back to Hong Kong.
They're jet ferry. You got two J's for the jet ferry. The jet ferry there, and the jet ferry back.
Yeah, turbojet.
I'm surprised you don't take the extra J is for. I'm surprised you don't take a helicopter.
The helicopter is a very baller option.
Have you ever taken the helicopter?
I haven't. If I ever ship the main event, or if I ever ship like a significant tournament there for 6 figures or something, I will definitely helicopter myself and some of my friends over the ferry. I think that thing takes like 15 minutes, but that'd be the baller way to go.
And the ferry ride sucks. That thing sucks.
Well, I mean, I think it's okay. I mean, were you on it on like a really choppy day?
Yeah. But I mean,
Okay.
it didn't make me sick, but I saw some people who were clearly not.
Really?
Oh, really?
not
Yeah,
having
I would
fun.
say like 90% of the time it's pretty smooth. And you also were riding that boat coming off like a 13-hour flight too, which will make anybody
That doesn't help.
put anybody in a bad mood.
It does not help
Yeah,
at all.
I'm going
I
to
thought it
Macau.
was
So
cool.
the main is they're actually crushing it over there. They just had like 600 people for their, I guess it was like 2K buy-in tournament. So their main event ends up being like I think 12K US or something like that. So it's a pretty sizable main. I think a lot of the international pros go over that. There's also a high roller, which I think is, I'm not sure, it's like 30K US or something like that.
That's good size.
It's pretty big. I think it was Steve O'Dwyer who won that thing last year when we were all there, right?
Yeah.
And and I'm sure he'll be there again this year.
Yeah, for sure. Did you see this Onion article about bacon causing cancer or something?
That was a clever prank that the World Health Organization pulled.
Oh, it wasn't an Onion article? I thought it for sure was.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to stop eating bacon. I mean, come on, people. Bacon. There's no stopping.
It's really funny too because it's like this whole like processed meat causes cancer thing. It's like, well, nobody's ever thought that this was good for you. Like, it's just, don't eat the whole package every day for breakfast every morning. Like,
Wait till lunch. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. 4 strips for breakfast, 4 strips for lunch, and 4 strips for dinner, and that's what we call a balanced diet.
Exactly. Yeah. I was hiding that article for my kids in the newspaper. I was like making sure they didn't see that because they'd stop me. They'd be like, "Dad, no more bacon," and I'd be like, "No, that's not happening."
Well, there's really like a lot you can do to like mitigate that, like eating a lot of green leafy vegetables,
Which I do.
Not nuking the shit out of your bacon also helps. Like if you don't like get all the if you don't burn the living shit out of your bacon, it's
burnt
definitely
bacon sucks. Like why, dude? I'm a bacon connoisseur. I don't burn my bacon.
I agree, but some people they you get.
I don't like it crispy. It ruins it.
Yeah,
It's like a well done
like,
steak.
Yeah, if you can break it with your fingers, that's not
terrible.
good.
No,
that's not what we want.
Speaking of kids, Halloween rolled by. Terrence, you go out and trick or treating, or what happened there?
Yeah, I went trick or treating in Hong Kong.
That's not a thing in Hong Kong.
Well, no. Well, Halloween in Hong Kong is like one of those holidays that's like only for the adults. Like how Halloween in North America, it's like
About the kids.
It's for the kids, but the adults also participate. And you think, oh, those people are lame. You're 37 years old and you're wearing like a costume. You're not that funny.
Yeah.
But like obviously with kids, it's super cute, and you want to give out lots of candy and have cute kids come over to your house that are dressed like things and have them pretend to scare you and shit like that. But here in Hong Kong, it's just all the adult wannabes. Look at me, I'm cool. I'm a sexy nurse, etc.
It's okay.
Usually it's cute for my kids. This year it wasn't so cute. My kid dressed up as Donald Trump,
That was awesome.
which
It was a good
tilted
costume.
the shit out of his liberal father, who's got to take his kid around the neighborhood.
How
dressed
did he
as
even
Donald
get
Trump.
that idea? Like he just
Well,
watches a lot of news or what?
No,
Like,
so what happens is we go into the Halloween store, and he picks out a costume and I look at it, and it's $275.
wow.
I'm thinking,
What was it?
I don't know, it was like a warrior from one of his video games that he likes or something, and there's zero chance I'm playing this. I go, look, this isn't happening. Go find something. He comes around the corner with a Donald Trump mask on it, and I'm like, it's his shirt on, but I don't know it's him, and because it's one of those complete masks. And I looked at the price tag, and it was $19.99, and he already had a suit from hockey, so he got to wear the suit with his $20 Donald Trump mask, but he scared the shit out of everybody. Which our neighborhood buys into Halloween. It's really cool. We had a guy this year, and it was so good. He completely closed up his front porch with a black sort of sheet and put cuts in it and all kinds of blood and everything. And when the kids would be halfway up the driveway, he would come jumping out, and he was dressed exactly like Jason from
Awesome.
Friday the 13th. Jason's the one with the chainsaw, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's got the chainsaw, he's got the hockey mask, he's got the hair. He did it perfectly, and he would just he scared the shit out of every kid, like to the point where you know how kids walk on the street. The kids were taking crossing the street so they wouldn't be in front of his house. He's just standing there in his driveway with the chainsaw, and I'm just laughing.
Was it a real chainsaw?
I mean, I don't know. It was making chainsaw noise, so hopefully it wasn't, because he was, obviously near the kids. But some of the kids had balls, and they walked up and laughed and thought it was good.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I you can talk shit about the suburbs, and that is definitely one of the great things about living in the suburbs, living in family places, as they say. That people definitely go all in on Halloween. I remember that too, growing up in Burnaby. There would be houses where they clearly spent like 30 hours decorating the place to the hilt, and just to give the kids like the best possible experience. It's like, but when you live in like the downtown of a big city, like even if there is trick or treating, it's like this lame. All right, get out of my face.
Here's a chocolate. I beat it.
Yeah, I remember one house.
To get egged.
I remember one house that everybody avoided because the lady went all out every year and was so good at scaring the kids. What else was good was this Jimmy Kimmel prank.
Okay, that's the best. Terrence, have you seen this?
No, I have
Jimmy
not.
Kimmel every year he asks people like the week before. He says, "Okay, tell your kids that you've eaten when they wake up on the 1st
I've seen
of November."
This in previous years.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
Tell your kids you've eaten all their Halloween candy, and record it, and then send in the recordings. And
you can never listen about candy.
I mean, it's so cute. There's so many great ones. If you haven't checked that out, you'll howl. It's a lot of fun.
The 2015 version is definitely a winner.
Oh, it's fantastic. I think he put together a bunch of. He put probably more online, right? Like he showed some on TV, but they only have, of course, a certain amount of time.
There's like 5 or 6 of definitely worth checking out, though. They're very funny.
Check out his YouTube channel. Internet Poker Wall of Fame.
Yeah.
Do we have a drop for that?
Yeah.
Why don't we put it on?
Okay.
Do it for your country, Ross.
I'm doing it for my country. Here we go.
Internet Poker.
This week for the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame, we're going to induct one of the greatest nosebleed online poker players of all time. I was doing some research for this morning, checked High Stakes Database. He has $7.8 million in career earnings on his two online accounts at Stars, where he plays as Mr. Sweets 28, and Full Tilt Poker, where he is known as Oh My God Clay Aiken. It often gets said that one guy is the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Let me assure you, this week's inductee is the nicest guy in poker. He played a large part in shaping and advancing the way the game's played, both No Limit Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha. If you want to check out some of his fantastic training videos and the way he teaches players, you're going to love it. It's runatonce.com. Phil Galfond, welcome to the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame.
Thank you very much.
We haven't talked to you in a while, Phil. How's married life going? It was, I think, the last time we talked to you, we had you in studio, and you were about to get married.
Yeah, it's going well.
All good?
What do you think he's going to say, Adam? No, it's terrible.
She's yelling at me again. She says, take out the garbage, Phil. Like, is that the conversation now?
Well, after we're off the air. Yeah. No,
exactly.
it's cool. I mean, life is kind of still the same. It's just a little cooler.
Oh, good. Good to hear. As I mentioned, welcome to the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame. We're doing this thing. There wasn't a Wall of Fame for Internet Poker, or a Hall of Fame, so we thought we'd do our own one, and we're off to a flying start so far. Lots of guys, and appreciate you having fun with this.
Our goal is to actually have good choices, though, not just to have it be an iteration of the same 12 people.
It's not
nominating
Doyle's
all
friends.
of their buddies,
It's
people who are actually worthy of it. And so, as Adam kind of pointed out in the introduction, there's certainly nobody, definitely more deserving than you. You've revolutionized the game of online poker in addition to being one of the biggest winners. So, yeah.
I really appreciate it. Thank you guys, and I think it's really cool that you're doing it. Oh. I have followed it.
Oh, great.
Far.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're going to have fun with it. We're going to throw some people up there and then have some fun as well. I think we put Jim Moran Jr. up there because just for his 1 3-minute video or whatever it was, but it was fun.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I'm not offended.
Phil, so you know the wall. You've been following it. Who do you think should be up on this wall?
I think that I think that you're off to a good start in mixing, players and non-players that have been very important.
Right.
I don't. I think probably like all the names that come to mind are players, but I think you should continue to, do just anybody who's had an impact on the game or a large impact. I think actually the first name that comes to mind is Taylor Cabey, for his success, in high stakes games, along with really revolutionizing the way that people learn poker and teach poker. I think at some point you have to, even though he's a lot more recent, you have to get Victor Blom in there. There's just nobody that's done what he's done and created kind of the buzz that he's created.
What do you think about Michael Thuritz?
Yeah, I mean he's one of the few that have stood the test of time and like played high stakes throughout, or for as long as I can remember. I think he's really good. I mean, a good choice and a good player.
Yeah, there's lots of fun choices, and the good part is we've got a lot of time to get to them, and we'll definitely do that. When you look back, I mean, obviously you're still playing, you're still involved with online poker. But when you think back to sort of the glory days of those crazy games, full tilt, etc., are there some head-up battles that you look back on and kind of go, "Wow, that was something"?
I think. My biggest win and my biggest loss both came against Isildur. It wasn't quite as long ago, but I definitely have had a lot of fun matches against him, and both he and I mean, we play differently, but I think in a lot of ways we think in the same way. And I find that when most people beat me, or kind of, I guess, like get the best of me, I think it's usually based on like fundamentals, and I usually, I think, can get the upper hand in terms of like the leveling war. And I think that with Victor, that I think we have some very fun leveling wars, and he I think gets the best of me in that. I think that's, I mean, obviously for somebody to be as good as he is without like the technical background of a lot of other players, and without the learning the way other players do, he has to be really strong there, and I find it really, really interesting to try to outguess him. The player who back in the day would have the most fun playing, and I don't mean that because of like profit, is David Benjamin. I know that in more recent years, he became known as like, or the people assumed that he was not quite as good because he started losing, but you have to remember, like back in the early days, the game hadn't progressed as much, and we as online players hadn't progressed as much, and he was really, really good. And I had the most fun playing against him because I think a lot of players at that time who were successful were being successful with brute force, just with aggression and kind of, not very precise or smart aggression. And I think both David and I for heads up especially, played a more passive style, but I like to think of it with as far as like the difference. I like to think we played with more finesse, and so against him I'd play a lot smaller pots than I would against a lot of other people, but he's really smart, and you still have to, like, we focused a lot more on representing hands and reading hands, and I think it made it really fun. And then the one thing, this wasn't ever nosebleeds, but I remember a few years ago on Stars playing against Poker Party, who is up for debate who that account is.
Right.
And at one point we were 10 tabling. It was 9 or 10. Heads up.
Wow. Jesus Christ.
Which, like, he always wanted to play more tables. And I actually got to the point where I was comfortable 8 tabling him. But one day I think we played 10. It might have been 9, 10, or it might have been 12. I forget. And I just realized after a little while that I was just clicking buttons and I didn't know what was going on.
That's funny.
Did you think you had an edge there when you were doing that? Like when you're getting to that point, or was it one of those things where the more tables you played, probably your edge was starting to get diminished really badly?
I think that I was fine up to like 7 or 8 because he played in a way that you could develop a pretty simple strategy to beat him. So I was okay up to 7 or 8. I think though when we got to whatever it was, that was the max I played against him. He could cook faster, and I lost my edge, I think.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I've definitely had a few of those in Limit Hold'em myself, where I was worried that I was just getting in button clicking wars with people who were better at clicking buttons than me.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned with Isildur and the leveling wars, because I think that's really interesting. I mean, I feel like the sort of standard response when somebody is very creative and very tricky and very good at kind of getting in your head and leveling is you return to that sort of more GTO strategy, or what you feel to be an equilibrium strategy. Was it a matter of, most people would adjust in sort of that way and taking it down, as opposed to taking it up a notch and trying to outlevel the leveler? I mean, can you can you explain your thought process, or how you went about the meta game of playing against Isildur?
Yeah, I guess so. It's why I mentioned that most people, I think, when they get the best of me, are doing it that way. They have a better GTO understanding than me. It's why I think I have the most trouble with guys like both of the Bens in PLO. Although like I continue to try to improve my understanding of what I think approaches an optimal strategy, it's never really been my strength, and I've always attempted to outguess people who will try to guess with me. And and Victor's one of the only ones I've run into that's given me a whole lot of trouble and probably gotten the best of me in terms of that. I guess it probably would make sense to, it would. It's hard for me to like admit leveling defeat, I guess is what it is. So I wanted to hold out hope that I could outlevel him. And I think we're at least close, but I do think he got the best of me. So I was trying to. It might have been smarter to revert to a less exploitable game plan, though.
If you and Victor were playing Smash Up Derby and you were in old cars painted with numbers on them, and you were driving at each other at 50 miles an hour and going to play chicken, who's winning that battle?
Victor's winning for sure.
No question. Victor's just You're gonna That's funny. Victor definitely has to get up on the wall. I totally agree. He is winning, losing, whatever. He's fascinating for people to watch. And a lot of people say, "Oh, he's a loser, or net overall, whatever." But the guy has as much gambling in him as anybody that's ever played, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just like the fact that he plays the highest stakes at every variant against anybody, and I mean, he held his own at 08 against guys that are supposed to be unbeatable, and without much experience. He's not using study tools. He is not using a HUD. I visited him once and explained what a HUD was.
Really?
And how it worked. Yeah.
What was his take on it when you explained it to him?
He thought it. Well, I mean, I set one up for him, and then he just didn't. He didn't like it.
That's funny.
But yeah, so like just the fact that he can compete and just be self-taught, it's unreal.
And that one day, I think, online poker will always. Where were you that day that he took on everybody in the biggest games online? I'll never forget that. So, talking about HUDs, what's your opinion on the state of these nosebleed games now? When maybe it's not so much a battle of wits like you were in the past, and now it's sort of a battle of who's got the best software.
Yeah, it's a big question, and well, it's a multi-part question. So first, I want to say that there's certainly a difference between a HUD and a bot on the way.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Ends of the spectrum, and I think sometimes they get lumped together in discussions like this, or at least they're perceived that way. So I think HUDs specifically, especially like the HUDs that everybody has access to that are commercially available.
Yeah.
I think they're, as far as like right or wrong, I don't really feel either way morally. I think if a site wants to offer HUD free play or they want to allow HUDs, I think either stance is fine as long as they can enforce it. I think that the game is super interesting without HUDs. I think it's also super interesting with HUDs. And I still think it's very much a battle of wits either way. You just have some more information to process and use to your advantage. And it does bring in some different skill sets, but skill sets that are just as commendable and interesting.
But is it narrower? Is it interesting to a narrower group of people when it's a HUD battle rather than a group battle of wits? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there less people that it would be interesting to?
I guess probably. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably. But I mean, at the highest level of things, there are fewer people that understand what's going on, and fewer people that would be interested in the intricacies.
Sure.
The highest level of advanced physics or something.
Right.
Whereas a lot of people can understand maybe the basics. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that it's that way. I do think that as time goes on, I think that bots are obviously very bad for the game for obvious reasons. I think somewhere that's more in the middle of the spectrum, or maybe not middle, are like these, away from the table solvers, which there's absolutely nothing wrong ethically with. But I do find it less fun that the games are getting closer to solved by that process. I don't, like I said, nothing wrong with it. But it does worry me about the ability to compete without using it.
Right.
Do you think that there's, one of the possible solutions is to just have different and unique variants of poker that happen all the time? I mean, in terms of programming for online poker, that's hard. You can't just come out with a new variant every day, and it doesn't really help the poker economy. But do you think that's a potential, when you talk about away from the table solvers, that's not something anybody could do anything about, even if it were unethical or illegal or whatever.
Right.
But maybe creating new games is the way to go.
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. I think you wouldn't need to change games even weekly to make a difference, because to build these solvers it takes a lot of time. But the problem is getting people interested in playing a new variant, and I think that it may reach a point that solvers or bots, hopefully not bots, but are so prevalent and unstoppable that this is what needs to happen. But then I think it's just going to be regs against regs, because regs are the only people that will understand that a new game needs to be played. And they'll be willing to jump around games. But hopefully we're very far away from that.
Yeah, hopefully. How much time do you spend on working on your game, on playing? I know you're obviously involved heavily with Run It Once, and now newly married too. That changes a lot of things. What's your commitment to playing like these days?
I came back from the series. We were there like 3 months, because got married in the month before the series started, and actually bought a house at that time too, or moved in. So stayed and hung out there for a while, and I realized when I came back that I'd only played I think it was 100,000 hands, or no, less. I think it was 60,000 hands on the year, which I was kind of disappointed in, and so I decided I would play as much as I can, and I just played whatever was running 1020 plus, and I did manage in what month is it now? November? I guess it was September then. I played 50,000 hands, which is probably the most I've played in a long time.
Yeah.
So I've been focusing on playing more since then, because that was during WCOOP, I think, right?
Yeah.
So the games have died down quite a bit since then, which was disappointing, but I'm still trying to get hands in. I find that I learn a lot through making videos, and especially these days more than in the past. Run It Once members and probably other sites as well, they challenge you a lot more based on the way that you play and things that you talk about. And so while it adds a lot of work, it actually it's good, because it forces you to learn, because you have to defend your plays, or you have to realize that they're right.
That happened a lot. The guy's right, one of your subscribers, and you go, yeah, wait a second, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are a lot of situations where, so there are plenty of situations where I end up saying you're definitely right in theory, but I think that they don't defend against this properly, or they don't respond properly. But many cases where I end up saying, most of the times, yeah, that was kind of a lazy mistake. But sometimes, yeah, just I was misunderstanding that spot. Absolutely.
A lot of people wanted us to ask you about the VIP changes at PokerStars. Obviously, as a guy who plays high stakes, this is going to affect you as well, and a lot of people that you know. I know this is all of it's just come about, and I'm sure you probably want to spend some time thinking about it and to form your opinion. But If you are willing to comment or want to come back, we'd love to have you to talk about it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mentioned a few things on Twitter, just kind of, not that I was angry, but just heat of the moment, things that I felt like saying. But I do think that this is it's a big deal.
Sure.
And people are taking it as a big deal too, which is good. But I think that, as a business owner in poker, and probably it's true of business owner in any area, but people will consistently ask you for a better product and lower prices with no justification. So I think that, like, I don't just want to be complaining because the rake is increased, because obviously everybody doesn't want that. Nobody wants the prices to go up. So I think it's important that we, and especially myself, because I'm in a position where more people will listen to me potentially, take some time and think about, step back and think about it more before, making any.
No problem.
Taking a stance.
Sounds good. If you do want to spend some time talking about it, feel free to come on back on the show, and we'll hit it up then. Any specific picture you would like used for the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame induction?
Oh man, I don't. Nothing off the top of my head. No.
Okay.
Is there something you guys had in mind?
Nothing. I haven't looked. Haven't looked to do it yet, but when I do, I'm sure I'll find lots to pick from. So thanks so much. I appreciate it, Phil, and thanks for spending some time with us tonight.
Yeah, good talking to you guys. Thank you.
That was good, Terrence. We finally got one of the IPWAF inductees on the show again.
Yeah, it helps when you get somebody who hasn't been out of the industry for 8 years or something like that. Like half the people that ended up getting nominated. But yeah, no, it was really great. I hope people enjoy that, and without question, just one of the biggest superstars in the history of online poker. So
yeah,
almost overdue, even though we're only 8 or 9 nominations in, right?
Yeah, no question. He was going up at some point, and it was fun to have him on.
And the people he mentioned are going in there too. I don't think I don't think he threw any names out there that blew anybody's mind.
All right, let's get to some in case you missed it.
How did he miss the open goal? 6 by 4, and he comes up 0.
Oh, yes! He missed it!
He's missed it! How on earth did he miss that?
In case you missed it, this week drastic changes to the PokerStars VIP Club were announced by PokerStars. This is for 2016. Last week, on a Russian language PokerStars VIP site, they had, I guess inadvertently, put up the text in Russian for the changes, for the new policies coming in 2016. Everybody, of course, ran to Google Translate and plugged everything in there, which made for some amusing translations, I'm sure. And they've tried to figure out exactly what was going to be changed. There was 2 things in the post that were talked about. One of them was vast changes to the rewards program for the VIPs, and also changes to the third-party software policy to further restrict HUDs and tracking software and stuff. I kind of don't think these are the same thing. I think these are 2 distinct issues, so mixing them up isn't a good idea. So we're going to address them separately. The first one, Terrence, drastic changes to the VIP program. I'm going to list these off, and stop me if you want to talk about anything individually, as I'm sure we're going to, but I'll just go down the list here, what I have of the changes that are coming. First, a couple months back, VIP Steps was introduced. These are a different way that they're going to award FPPs. Players are credited the FPPs at the end of every month rather than immediately when they're earned. Each VIP level, so Gold Star, Bronze Star, all of them, they're broken down into 20 steps. And so as you earn VPPs, you get up to the next step within the level. So there's 20 steps, and you don't get these FPPs credited to your account until the end of every month, rather than instant, as I said. Stars, their position was that this is going to help casual players be goal orientated within the session instead of this goal of getting to the next VIP level within a couple of weeks or whatever it ends up taking them. They feel like this is going to get them more engaged in getting to their next step before they quit. The problem is they decided that if you don't complete a step, one of the 20 steps within a VIP status, you're only going to get credit for 50% of the FPPs earned for that step that you've earned. So it's a bit of a clawback there on stuff that you've earned, and of course you don't get it till the end of the month. Anything on that, Terrence, you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, we had, I don't remember if it was Matthew or whether it was Steve at that time, when this sort of first came out, and we sort of, and I never went through the math on this, but I'm sure some people did, but it didn't seem like this was one of the things that was going to create like a dramatic negative change for people. It really, taking Stars at their word here, I think is fair, saying that they want to sort of increase the transparency and then, like you said, the engagement of getting people and making it just a bit more apparent, gamifying it a little, breaking it down into smaller steps. It seems was the goal. Like you point out the sort of the 50% soft landing, that's slightly harmful, but it's just one step out of 20.
Yeah, I would take them at their word that they feel like this is going to create engagement within session as well. I don't know that they have all the data on that, so maybe that's true. The next change was all rewards are now going to be given, this is in 2016, in a new currency called Stars Coin. Each coin is going to have a value of 1 cent. All FPPs on January 1st will be converted. If you have FPPs in your account on January 1st, they're going to be converted to Stars Coin at a rate of 1.2 Stars Coin for every FPP. Players then are going to have to use Stars Coin going forward to buy anything from the store or bonuses, etc. So, and this is a devaluation of FPPs by 25%. This is in the conversion to Stars Coin, you're going to lose 25% of the value of any FPPs that you have left in your account. So whatever you do, if you have FPPs in your account now, transfer them or use them up or buy tickets, or not transfer them, but use them to buy bonuses or tournament tickets, whatever you can do to spend them by January 1st, because they're being devalued by 25%. Your thoughts on that one, T?
Yeah, so this was a two-parter, like you mentioned. I think the first part is fine, just naming it Stars Coin and just taking away like FPPs has sort of been this sort of vague term, and it's been like, oh well, you need 18,500 to get this and this, and if you get Amazon gift cards, then they're worth this much, and if you get like tournament entries, they're worth this much. And I sort of understand how that system, that part of it, is something that they wanted to make a little bit more obvious. The 25% devaluation is obviously the thing that's going to stick in people's craws, and obviously you've made you've given very good advice. Make sure to convert those before January 1st. In fact, I made a huge mistake. So, I as people who listen to the show know, I played I don't play all the time, but I played a good number of W Coops in September. So I had Gold Star for all of October, and I failed to remember. I should have set myself some sort of reminder to convert them before November, because you can convert FPPs at a faster rate or at a better cash rate when you're a Gold Star, as opposed to when you default at the end of the month back to Bronze Star. So I worked it out. I probably I have so many FPPs in my account because I never really redeemed them. I probably cost myself $1,000 or so by not doing that. So if your status now is higher than your status is planning to be in December, this of course assumes that you're not a Supernova, which probably most people listening to the show aren't. Then yeah, definitely figure out whether it's this month or whether it's next month when you're going to have your highest status, and then start clicking that button over and over and over in the thing, or try to figure out the thing. I was looking in like the Aussie Million package, maybe the play for me, because there are some live tournament packages that are discounted. I think it's discounted like 7%, so you get a little bit better than the standard rate of FPP when you buy certain things that Stars obviously wants you to get. But regardless, like you said, whatever you do, just turn them all into cash or turn them all into whatever you're going to turn them into before January 1st, because they're going to be devalued after that. And that's unfortunately a common thing in loyalty programs, whether it's poker sites or airlines or credit cards or whatever. They often do get devalued, just like real money, I guess.
It bothers me that they're doing this. They're obviously within their rights to change their program. It's not a lot of notice, I don't think. 2 months to change, and we'll get to how much notice this is on some of the other things in a second. But just strictly sticking on this devaluating FPPs. Even this is short notice, I think, for doing this. People are away on holidays. They don't know. They don't read poker, whatever news outlet that they have. They don't know that this is going to happen. They only have 60 days, really, to discover this is going to happen. It's a clawback, clearly. They see their liability in FPPs on their balance sheet. And when they're looking for places to increase their profit or to shift money to other programs that they want to do, it just seems like they went, oh, wait a sec, we have X million in liability here. Why don't we take that down somehow to another, a lesser amount and use that money elsewhere, that kind of thing. But I really feel like 2 months is...
Yeah, the timeline is... I mean, I think 6 months would be reasonable. I mean, I'm looking in the email address that I use for Stars. They haven't sent anything. It's just... So, you would really have to, follow 2+2, follow Twitter, follow whatever, to even have an awareness of this at some point. And, we'll get into some of the other stuff later, but if it wasn't for, again, some random, leak on the Russian PokerStars.ru or whatever, we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. We might even be talking about it later in the year. It's not a lot of run up. Usually when airlines say okay, so this flight that used to cost 20,000 miles is now going to cost 30,000 miles, which is actually the same as devaluing it themselves, right? You just increase the price of things. They usually, they might tell you in October, but it won't take effect until March or something like that. That's. I mean, I don't know what obviously they have the right to change the terms and conditions however they want, but when you're talking about doing the right thing from a customer loyalty perspective and doing right by people, 7 weeks or so is not ideal.
No, and I should clarify, you mentioned the Russian side again, and thank you for that, because I'm going to clarify. After the Russian thing was leaked, a couple of days later, I guess Stars realized that this information was getting out, and they needed to be proactive and go ahead and release it on the English site as well, which they did. And this is all information from the latest release, because it actually did change a little bit, and we'll get to that in a sec, from the Russian site to the English one, and I guess maybe some people had some input on some changes. The next thing, frequent player points will not be earned in high-stakes cash games anymore. All big bet games, this is PLO, no limit hold'em, etc., from 5-10 and up, and all limit games from 10-20 or higher will no longer earn any VPPs. Stars is saying these games are unprofitable for them because of the high transaction costs. They're dealing with large amounts of money. So this is their contention, is when this gets transferred in and out in real dollars, this becomes a large amount to them. And
this is a real thing. I mean, the I don't know what Stars pays in transaction costs, but typically payment processors, they're not charging flat rate fees, right? So when somebody deposits $50,000 or withdraws $50,000, it's often not 100 times more than somebody who deposits $500 or withdraws $500, but it's significantly more. So I think high stakes games and have always been at best sort of mildly profitable for Stars and a lot of the other sites, and a lot of their value has always been to just attract the customers, give customers what they want. Also, to be kind of not just the sort of celebrity aspect. We all have we all have the memories of these 300, 600 no limit games on full tilt that brought in all the railbirds. But so not only that, but just sort of being known as the place to play. Sort of like the way there's a reason why, the Wynn, the Bellagio, and the Venetian, kind of battle it out to have the high stakes games, and it's because people like to play where the big bosses are playing. It's just like this sort of feeling. It really helps your brand, and so that's sort of always been the value to the poker site of the high stakes games, more than the rake generated from those games themselves.
So I'll go one further than that. I agree with you, but I think that if this has the effect that a lot of people think that it's going to have, and it's going to kill to a large degree the high stakes cash games, people don't have, guys who are jumping in playing 25 cent, 50 cent, 50 cent, $1. They won't have a game to look up to go, I'm going to get to that game. And yeah, in the short term, maybe it costs them money or at break even or whatever have you. I can't imagine they've been losing money on high stakes games the entire way along, and maybe transaction costs have gone through the roof. I really don't know. But if you take those games away, if they go away because of the changes that you knowingly make, and you deprive those players motivation, or at least some of the players, the motivation that I'm going to sit here and get better and get better and get better. I mean, that's how do you think Victor did it, or any of these guys? They went, okay, I'm starting in low stakes and I'm going to work my way up there, and I'm going to work as hard as it takes to do that. If there's no game for them to play, do you take away? Does that cost you money, much more money than just those transaction costs?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like the invisible effect, right? Like you don't see the players that don't show up. I mean, it's impossible to account for them. I think you're totally right. In fact, I'm working on a blog piece about this, and I think this is maybe the biggest change, actually, because they're really reshaping by saying, okay, above this limit, we kind of don't care about you guys, which is kind of the implication is that it's sort of. This can have a really profound impact on not just stars, but the entire sort of poker economy. I mean, even generating to live poker, because if you never play above, say, 3-6 no limit, are you going to jump into 25-50, 50-100 in a live game? Probably not. Like you've never played that big before at all. Online poker has always been great for live poker because it's created this feeder system where people were able to like you say, level up, start at 25 cent, 50 cent, and then to 1-2, and then to 5-10, and then to like Phil Galfond stakes, right? So it's always created this, and I think the real this may even be a bigger change than the one that's being most talked about, which is the Supernova Elite stuff, which we'll talk about in a second. But this may be the biggest thing because it could mean, honestly, like the death of professional online poker. It could be that there's no more real online poker pros anymore, and a significant decrease in the number even of live pros, because I just think this reverberates all throughout the poker ecosystem. I think this is big news, and this is stars really kind of saying like, hey, we're not gonna remove these games 5-10 no limit and 10-20 limit above. We're not removing them completely. We're not taking them away. Like, you can play them, but we have no desire to encourage you playing them. They're there. You can play them if you want, but we're not going to help you with this in any way.
Do you think the games just die?
No, I don't think they die. I think they wither is what happens. They certainly, it's not like on, I certainly don't think on like January 1st next year, like there's no more games. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people playing 3-6 no limits, and a lot of people playing 8-16, or I don't know what the second highest.
Yeah, what does that do? Like, if 5-10 and higher doesn't have any player rewards at all. Now, do those guys? Do they step down and they go play 3-6? Like, is that and then those guys who are playing 3-6? Wait a second, there's a giant influx of really good poker players here in 3-6. I'm going to drop down to 2-5, and the 2-5.
I think that's exactly what happens. Like, everybody just ends up moving down, and that's why sort of, I wrote a short blog piece yesterday about, the possible death of the online poker pros, because everybody's going to be taking like a significant salary cut, right? Because if you were doing well at 5-10 no limit or something, and you're going to you move down, or let's say you're doing well at 3-6 no limit, now you have to play against players who were better, at least in theory, and then that may encourage you to go down limits, or at the very least, if you stay there in limits, your win rate's going to be lower. So you're taking 20, 30, 40% pay cut. Obviously, the high stakes players, they're taking a pay cut. The super high stakes, I mean, if you play like 100, 200 no limit, this probably actually doesn't quite affect you as much because rakeback is a smaller percentage of your actual, your win rate. But yeah, I think it reverberates all the way on down, and like I said, it even has an impact on live poker. I think this is really the most interesting thing that sort of comes of all this, is that it kind of pushes everybody down. And I think in the long term, it starts to dry the games up, because you've got the best players if you've got not the very, very, very best players in the world, but like that sort of next tier, those guys are all playing 3-6 and 2-4 no limit. Like that really pushes that makes it hard for some of these like decent, pretty good no limit pros or pot limit Omaha pros to survive at these stakes. It really makes it a tough grind for them. Then they'll be sort of the new rakeback pros, but people are realizing that, well, okay, this is what they're doing for 2016, 2017. They're not going to suddenly bring back the rewards and make it awesome again. So should I really be trying to grind out hour after hour, 8 tables at a time, 12 tables at a time, 12 hours a day, every day, no breaks, trying to achieve status? Probably not, right?
I think one of the big problems is going to, and it might even kill limit games faster. I think if you take away that for 10-20 limit Hold'em, 10-20 limit Omaha high-low split, 10-20 deuce to 7, 15-30, those games that maybe not deuce to 7 so much because maybe that game is, but limit Hold'em and limit Omaha 8, the game I used to play a lot. I mean, a lot of your incentive to play those games was the FPPs that you were going to earn.
Yeah, it's hard to beat the rake at 10-20 limit Hold'em. I mean, there was a time where I was one of the best limit Hold'em players in the world, and I'm not sure I could beat 10-20 limit Hold'em like right now without any sort of rewards program. I mean, I think I probably could, but I mean,
it's tough.
It's tough. It's certainly tough.
And I think that's what Stars is trying to do. I think they're trying to change. I mean, let's face it, online poker is very difficult to beat now. It's much different. Yeah. The game has completely changed in even the last 2 or 3 years, like in that short of time. So, if you're PokerStars, you look at that and go, oh, wait a second, this isn't a recipe for success for a long-term future for this game. What can we do to bring back an environment where it's, again, I mean, they're probably not going to have the environment they had in 2006, 2007, whatever, but is there a way to make the games better? And if that was the case, like if they were taking all this money away from the guys who they've been incentivizing for years and saying, hey, come to use our VIP program, play all these hands and get all this money back, this is the way to do it. Encourage people to do that, 20 table, whatever. And then you do an about face like that in like 60 days and say, wait a second, remember all that stuff we were saying? Yeah, no, not so much anymore. We're going to try and work on the games. And I think if there was sort of a clear plan that they outlined and said, okay, we're taking this money away. Like, this is what I would have liked to see. Yes, we're taking much of the VIP program away. We're doing this, but we're going to take this money and we're going to go and spend it and buy whatever it is. Somehow or another, they spend money to acquire new depositors
television
on the
ad.
site.
We're going to do these television ads. We're going to hire these, because they always make, they come on our show, the Stars reps always come on our show and they talk about how getting, Ronaldo or whoever,
sure,
is a big thing for growing these. How spin and goes have attracted so many new users, and they have been very very innovative and very proactive in sort of
successful,
getting these new. But I guess, I suppose what you're saying is that you would like to see like greater transparency. I mean,
but they don't owe that to us.
We don't have to spend like this much of our budget is going towards marketing for new player acquisitions or whatever. But yeah, it's sort of like the sign was like, okay, we're taking, but it's very clear how they're taking, because you've got this poker community which is very, very adept at going through this stuff with a fine-tooth comb and saying like, okay, it's going to cost exactly this much, and we're going to reduce this X percent, but it's not very clear on the other end because they just don't have access to that information.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I don't think Stars owes anybody anything other than what they
I don't-
promise.
I'm thinking,
But
yeah.
if you're gonna operate as Stars has for a long time and that has built up a lot of trust in players, you would hope that they would consider you more of a partner in this and say, hey, I understand this is a big hit, but hey, look, we're going to bring you guys. And I don't think too many people disagree. I think obviously there's going to be some people, but I think a lot of people realize that something has to be done to make these games anywhere online better and bring more people to the game, and that's expensive. Everybody always said, well, there should be a zero rake game. There should be a zero rake site where you pay $10 a month or something. Well, that's fine in theory, but it doesn't ever. They don't have any money to spend to bring players in, and it's just going to be people who care about rake. So that's not a path to success. It's been proven many times. You need to be able to spend money to bring people in, right? Anyway, I mean, I just wanted to say that I wanted to make it clear that I don't think they owe that explanation. The only thing Stars owes players is what they promised in advertising, whatever, and we'll get to some of that in a second. One other change before we get to that is VIP free rolls. The Supernova Quarterly, they are discontinued. There are new ones in place for different levels of different VIP levels, but they're going to be smaller than the Supernova ones were in the past, and the other ones as well. The next one that everybody's talking about, Supernova Elite, as a VIP level, will be discontinued in 2017. I know
I'm not even sure if that one gets the thematic drop.
We're going to get in trouble for that because that's a drop from another poker show.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
I don't know if you probably don't listen to it.
Wait, I thought that was just like a generic.
Yeah, it's generic.
I mean, but he's used it for years.
What's the other show?
Poker Fraud Alert. Todd Wattelis' show. He uses that, I don't know, 15 times a show. Or
really?
Something. Yeah.
I've never heard it.
Yeah, so anyway, it's funny.
I've heard the show. I just didn't know.
Anyway,
Supernova
Elite is going to be gone. Now, on the on the new one, it's saying Supernova Elite will be, for anybody who earns Supernova Elite in 2015, remember this is 2 months left in the year, anybody who earns it in 2016, instead of getting 70% rake back, they are going to get 45%. In the original Russian translation, it said 30%. In the couple of days since when they put up the English version, it was changed to 45% for 2016, and then in 2017 it's going to be completely abolished. The Supernova Elite will no longer exist. This is a big change. Stars has pointed towards Supernova Elite and trumpeted the players for a long time and said this is, pointed to them and said this is how you can succeed, and many people did. Hundreds and hundreds of people every year get Supernova Elite. It's worth just north of $100,000 in bonuses usually. So it's a big deal. Now the problem here is that PokerStars for the first 10 months of 2015 has said in their advertising for Supernova Elite that part of what you earn as Supernova Elite is that VPP level, the status level for the following year, whether you're Supernova Elite or not the next year, that you can convert your FPPs to cash at that rate of Supernova Elite, much higher rate. So this is very much a 2-year sort of thing. If you do earn Supernova Elite in a year, the next year you get to have the much higher multiplier for turning in your FPPs for cash. So a lot of the reason that people do this is to get that higher thing. So now they've been saying that for 2015 and saying, hey, come and get Supernova Elite, and you will have this status, and you'll be able to use it in the following year. And then in November, they say, oh, yeah, remember we were saying about what we said about 2016? Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. It's actually less.
Right, and real quick, this is one of the most clever parts, of course, about the VIP program is the fact that, okay, so, let's take a step back. Let's say you decided in 2014 your goal is to be Supernova Elite for 2015. So you achieve that in 2014, you play your balls off, and in 2015 you're going to get the 70% rake back. Now, the brilliance of this, of course, is that while you're getting 70% rake back, you want to put in as much volume as you want because you're going to make all of this extra money, because the more you play, the more FPPs that you get, the more you're able to convert into cash. And then just almost as a a byproduct of this, then you kind of renew your Supernova Elite status for the next year. So it's been the reason why that there's relatively low turnover in Supernova Elite, that hundreds of people do it every year, is that each year that you're doing it, you're getting rewards from the previous year, and then you're also continuing to build status towards the next year. So it's like this very positive feedback loop that just gets you playing more, and that's sort of the brilliance of the strategy. Is not that it's just like, okay, we do this for this, I grind my ass off for a year and then I sit back and I collect the money. I actually have to go out and get the money, and in the process of going out and getting the money, I again renew the status for this year. But now we've kind of reached the end of the loop, right? So next year, in 2016, if you're only going to get 45% rake back, you're a little bit less disincentivized. But even if they were keeping the rake back levels the same, you still wouldn't have as many people pushing that hard next year, simply because you know that in 2017 it's not going to be there anymore. Which I think that's fine. I mean, I think I'm not sure from a business perspective whether it's a great thing to abolish Supernova Elite for 2017. I mean, I feel like making it harder would probably be, as a business goal, but whatever. But I don't think anybody has like an ethical problem with it necessarily.
You're talking about 2017.
For 2017, because now you're giving people 14 months
right.
to make a decision about the future of their lives. It's not, you're not under binding people to anything that they've already done in the past. But when we're talking about the 25% rake reduction for 2016, this is the issue that I think that most people have a problem with.
I think, I agree. And, people say, well, they're getting 70% rake back, big deal, they're going to 45, whatever. I mean, Stars has sort of designed this system where the rake is fairly high when you're playing these lower to medium stakes. But it's okay if you get to these
Supernova to the number of big blinds, like
relative,
in
yeah.
play, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, but if you get these high VIP statuses, it's going to be okay because you're going to get a large amount of that high rake back. So this is the way that it was sort of designed. Now to go ahead and say, I'm shocked that Stars did this. To be honest, I can't believe that they decided that it would be a good idea to change the 2016 VIP reward for Supernova Elite to 45% from 70. I just don't know how you can.
Well, this late in the year, right? Like if they did in July,
even then
there would be some anger.
I mean,
yeah, even then you would still have the people who would work the first 6 months of the year and work really hard for it.
You have to give a full year's notice for this. To be ethical about it, you have to say, look, I understand that people have played for 10 months up to now, and they've played in some cases. These guys play nonstop, and that's their decision. I get that. But when Stars advertises and says, yeah, go do this, and then you take the rug out from under them after they've done all that, and just to say, well, by the way, you're not getting that money. I'm surprised. I can't believe Stars.
It really looks a lot like just trying to make the numbers good and keep because these things, it makes like having all of this revenue growth, like it makes the numbers look good, it makes the total number of users look good, the total revenue look good, and then when you bring in, you come into that shareholder meeting and say, okay, actually next year our gross, our net revenue, is going to look even better because we're not going to be paying out all these rewards. Then these shareholders that don't really understand the ecology of the poker system go, oh, okay, great, my stock's going to be worth even more. It keeps the stock price high, but eventually at some point, when we get to deep into 2016, those numbers are going to fall. I mean, that seems very clear that those numbers are going to fall, they've got a few months to sort of figure out what the hell they're going to do to really like drive a lot of traffic back into the site, so there's not some sort of significant exodus and people don't freak out that the shareholders don't freak out that how come nobody's playing on our site anymore.
There's a movement to bring this to Stars' attention by a lot of people on Twitter, including Daniel Negreanu, who obviously is the face of their site. I hope that there's some people get through and there's some rethinking of this decision. I think the proper thing to do would be to say, okay, if you win Supernova Elite in 2015, you have full status in 2016. as far as changing your VIPs. Obviously, some of the benefits are going to go away. That's been stated, but you can, whatever you earn, you can still turn in at the rate. And then in 2017, they're fully within their rights, obviously, to change their VIP program like they, in the future with proper notice as much as they want, and it goes away in 2017. I hope that there's some rethinking of that decision. And
because it is the one thing that everybody takes major issue with from sort of an ethical perspective, right? Like everything else is sort of like, okay, well, because people are saying what you kind of said 15 minutes ago, which is, like they're a business, they have a right to run their business however they see fit. They have the right to maximize their profit and do all that, but the issue that's sticking in everybody's craw is the fact that they did advertise all of this value for 2016 that they're sort of pulling back on, and there have even people going to the extent of taking screenshots of advertisements that they saw during 2015 and saying like, look, this is what you put on your website, and this is not what you're offering. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the real issue, and if they can resolve that, then I think they actually maybe not come out looking like the good guys, but certainly come out looking like a lot better than they do in the poker community right now.
It's a big gamble for Stars, I think, because, like we were saying before, you can imagine them sitting there saying, wait a second, we need to create a healthier economy here within our site. And these changes are theoretically what they think are going to work. They have all the data to say, well, we've got this data, and they have data analysts, and hopefully some of them understand poker and know the tendencies of people that play poker. But I don't really have any reason to believe that they don't think it's going to work. I believe that they think it's going to work. I just don't know that it is going to work to create a better environment, better games for people to play in. I don't know that it's going to work. I think, and yeah, that's a huge, because Stars is gambling with their revenue generating model, right? I mean, that's a big deal.
They are, but I mean, I would say desperate times call for desperate measures, and, we're not. I mean, I understand really that desperate times,
yeah.
But we are clearly seeing a downwards, trend, and we know the way that poker ecology works. That better players take money from weaker players, and they do so at a rate that's, let's say, higher than the poker sites might want, and so they're wanting to stem the tide and do something dramatic. I mean, I think that's a reasonable course of action. Like I think that what's really happened here, and this is just me speculating, is that Amaya, the board people at Amaya, the business people at Amaya didn't quite know what they were getting into. They didn't really understand. They looked at the raw data over the last 5 to 10 years of Stars' existence, and they say, okay, they had a phenomenal rate of growth from 2003 to whenever UIGA was 2007 or 8. For that period in the mid 2000s, and then they were hit hard by a bunch of legal troubles, but there's still reason to be optimistic. U.S. regulation and all this kind of stuff. So they've hit a downward trend. So maybe this is good, but they didn't realize one thing, which is just churn, which is just good players beating bad players, and how much that affects the ecology of the game, because it's not like a casino game where people just keep coming in and they're in for the gamble. Like poker players, a lot of the time they're there to win, or they're there to at least try to win, or feel like they have a good shot at winning. And so now they feel that they're a little bit desperate, and they need to figure out something new. And maybe that something new is just let's get rid of the pros, or at least get rid of the pros that make a lot of money. Let's invest in alternate things. So we've seen them invest. They've things like signing Jason Somerville and Jamie Staples on Twitch, and getting the Ronaldos, like we said, and the Spinigos, and all of the stuff that we do that gets mainstream rest of the world people into these games, and they're taking, and that's kind of where they're staking their claim, and they're saying, okay, pros, like you've been a part of this for a while, but you're actually a little bit more trouble than you're worth. I think this is largely the attitude of the new face of PokerStars at this point.
Seems that way. All right, I want to talk about our show here today. We obviously are going to talk about this issue a bit more. We've got Mike Brooks, MeleaB, who is a poster on 2+2. He's also a 7-year consecutive Supernova Elite. He's a former math teacher, so he's got some insight. And this is a guy who's directly affected. I want to get his take. We're going to bring him in a second. We've also, the other big story this week, of course, is the November 9. We've got the November 9 happening on Sunday, starting down at the Penn and Teller Theater in Rio or at the Rio in Las Vegas. Big deal. We've got our crowning event this year. Every year in the World Series of Poker, going to be televised live again. Or sorry, is it 15-minute delay, Terrence? I think 15, 30 minutes, something like that. Starting, I think it's 30 at 6:30 East Pacific time. On
some of these hands take 15 minutes. They couldn't have a 15-minute delay.
Maybe not. But looking forward to that. We've got Max Steinberg, who's a final tableist at the November 9. He is there. We're going to have him on and talk to him in our second segment in a little bit. But let's bring in Mike Brooks. Mike, welcome to the PokerCast.
Good afternoon or good evening. Or good morning.
Good morning over there. Late, I know, over in England. Appreciate it joining us. Just to let people know, you are a 7-time Supernova Elite. You've been 7 years in a row?
Five. I'm not Supernova Elite anymore, actually. I was from 2008 to 2012 or 13.
So you have a lot of experience with Supernova Elite and high volume play. We appreciate your insight.
Sure.
Big changes. Terrence and I have been talking about them, and I know you're involved a lot with it as well. Give us your overall take on what happened this week.
Well, if I just start with what I think the effect's going to be, obviously the changes, I can't see them possibly being a good changes at all. I think in the short term, what we're going to see, the games are going to get a lot tougher. We're going to see more money having to be paid out in rake. So winnings are just, or potential winnings are going to decrease significantly. Now, Stars are saying that they're putting all this money, all these millions of dollars that they're saving into marketing, and they're hoping that this marketing is going to bring in a whole new bunch of players to deposit money. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I don't think that's going to have very much impact on our games. The marketing they have to do anyway. I mean, it's basic rule of any business. When you have a product to sell, you have to market yourself. So it's not like they wouldn't have been putting any money in that direction anyway. The players that they bring in, they might have a commercial with Neymar, and it might come up on the screen. Come and join PokerStars, play our spin and goes, win $1 million. Those adverts aren't going to say, come and join PokerStars, put $100 down at a 9-man cash game. It's not going to bring players in to different games on the site.
But do you think people find that anyway? Like, do you think a guy who deposits $20 goes and plays some, $1 spin and goes, maybe loses $10 and then has 10 left and goes and plays, a 50-cent buy-in no-limit hold'em game or something like that? I mean, do you think there's a crossover there?
I think the variety of options are far more limited now. I think in the past it was pretty much up to the player to decide where they wanted to end up. Now players are being ushered away from the traditional games that we know and pushed more towards the lottery-style casino-type games of poker, where their edges are reduced and many of the games are literally unbeatable. Plus, of course, they bring players to the site, log on to the client. They're also going to see these notifications. Come and join our casino. Come and play our casino games. So all this marketing that they're doing, they're trying to make it seem appealing to your poker player, but it isn't necessarily going to bring players into those poker games. And even if it did, the benefit that we will see is going to be more than offset by the overall standard of the games getting tougher and tougher and tougher. And that is going to come from the trickle-down effect from regs starting as high as 510 plus, who will no longer be getting any of these Supernova Elite benefits. And I hate using the word benefits. It's not really a benefit. It's not a reward. It's basically money back from the fees that those players have paid. They're going to be moving down to 500 Zoom. Those players that currently play 500 Zoom, or many of those, are going to move down to 200 Zoom, or the mid-stakes, other mid-stakes cash games. In turn, they're going to push down to 100 no-limit games. the 100 no limit games are already very tough at the moment. You do have casual players playing there, but you've mainly got all but 1 or 2 seats are pretty strong players.
So Mike, if they reduce the overall rake back, for lack of a better word, for the lower stakes, and you're saying that a lot of the higher stake players are going to move down, I wonder if the rewards and the games you say currently aren't very good, will those guys just quit instead of moving down? Don't these guys just maybe go play live poker, or maybe get a different career, or that kind of? I mean, you're going to lose a lot of players, aren't you?
You are, but it's never going to make up. It's never going to suddenly make the games. It's never going to reach a point where you lose so many players that the games are suddenly a lot better than they were before. It wouldn't ever.
But if it's a rake trap, like if there's a lot of people saying it's a rake trap, Stars designed the lower level games with high rake. In big blinds per 100, maybe not comparatively to other sites, whatever, but in big blinds per 100 terms, these lower stake games, and especially the PLO ones, have a higher rake, and the way that was offset was, okay, play a lot of hands, go and get your status to be quite high, and you're going to get a bunch of that money back. So you take that away, and you leave that sort of high big blinds per 100 rake, and there's not going to be very many people that can sustain that. Like, I don't know, 80, right. Pick a number out of 80% of regs who normally would be able to continue playing now are going to be net loser at the end of the. I'm not saying 80 is the number. I'm just trying to pick a number. But I'm saying you'll lose attrition. You'll lose a fair amount of those people, it seems.
You will do, yeah. Because the only thing that matters, if we break it down, the only thing that matters is the competition and how much you pay in net rake. Forget these fancy terms of rewards and benefits. There's nothing free in it. Something that Daniel Negreanu will mention time and time again is the story of how he's paid at poker clubs and they get free sandwiches are given out. These are benefits that are given there to the players, but it isn't those benefits that get players at those clubs. What draws players to those clubs are where the fish go, where they're people that deposit all the money and lose all their money. But it's a very different environment talking about a live poker club and talking about the scene online. For one, he's misunderstanding what the definition of benefits and rewards are. They're not free sandwiches. You don't earn proportions of a sandwich every time you put money into a pot, every time you put money towards the rake. Benefits and rewards are bad choices of names for those terms. It's simply part of the fees that you have paid back. So the only thing that matters when it comes to the quality of the games and whether they're beatable are the competition and the net rate that you pay. And the games are not going to get soft enough to overcome the increased price that you have to pay in net rate. It is not a balanced system. I can't see how it can possibly be survived. Some players will leave. They'll go to other sites. The other sites have to get tougher because we're going to see disproportionate amount of player types leaving PokerStars. You're going to see more better players, more regular players, and high volume players leaving PokerStars and joining these other sites. So the quality at those sites will get tougher. PokerStars will be left with this big pool of fish that they or depositing players that they are, or Amaya will be left with this bunch of depositing players which they acquired when they bought the site PokerStars. But I think the danger is that they're going to end up suffocating the site. I think they can see that games will dry up. I think the net depositors, as I've already mentioned, they're going to be sort of like ushered towards these spin and go type games. Traffic is going to drop. Without people playing 5, 10 and above, you're not going to have the same interest in social media. You're not going to have people tweeting about hands, and you're not going to have so many podcast people talking about it, or people showing play on Twitch. These people that are playing the net depositors, they're not going to have these people to aspire to. They're not going to have them to look up to and have that dream moving up through the stakes. So what we're going to see is, I think, is that the traffic, like I said, the traffic will dry up, the games will dry up. The depositors themselves, they might get fed up with these casino type poker games that they're playing, and they may end up eventually leaving the site as well. So the worst case scenario, of course, is that suddenly this money making machine that PokerStars currently has is just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it could possibly get to a point where they're not going to be able to recover from.
So you're predicting a very sort of
doom and gloom. Doom and gloom, isn't it? It is doom and gloom, and it's a very difficult concept to model. It's a very difficult product to model. It's not like Amaya. Their experience is in gaming-related business. They deal with sportsbook, casinos, lottery-type games. So I'm sure in the past they've had to model up many different situations about what could work, what couldn't work. I'm sure they have people on their staff that do this. Maybe they bring in people from the outside to troubleshoot and predict and run different models and predict what's going to happen. They're very simple models, though, compared to the poker environment. And that's not even mentioning the different crowd of people that play the two different types of games. So in those casino type games, it can't be too hard, I'd imagine, to model. Well, what happens if we push more people towards these games? What happens if we take this game away, or let's do a promotion? How about we promote this type of game for a month? How could that work? They're very simple models to predict. When it comes to poker, the poker client, it's far more complicated because of the network between players, the interaction between players on the sites, how different players interact with each other, how they're needed in certain games, how even a cash player who may be sitting down playing 24 tables, he may have a 180-man sit and go on the side. He and other cash game players like him are helping to fill that list of 180 players to get those games started. Now, this is just one simple example, but you take out those grinders and all of a sudden it has an effect on those 180-man sit and goes, because they're not getting filled in 10 minutes anymore. They may not be getting filled at all. So it's a very complicated system. And PokerStars do have a lot of very knowledgeable people on their staff. Most of them, or an awful lot of them, are ex-players themselves. So they do have a love for the game, and they do know the game very, very well. But many of them haven't actually played on PokerStars for a long time now. And even the guys that they do have there that have been left over from before, from when Max Steinberg was there, alone, they don't have the capacity to be able to predict what these changes could do. What you need, the only people they can't go outside and get experts from elsewhere and bring them in and say, okay, we'd like you to model this up for us. They can't do that, because the only people with the experience and the know-how to tell them how these models could end up are players themselves, players in that 2%. Just like they've done in January at the start of this year, when a group of us met up in Vancouver to talk about potential solutions to seating scripts. Or prior to that, a meeting at the Isle of Man, where one thing we discussed was how to deal with the sheer number of rat holers that are taken over the site. So they need to get help and advice from players outside of their circle. They need people that play the games. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm not even saying then that they could come up with a perfect model and tell you how it's going to end up. I mean, the prediction I gave is doom and gloom, of course, and it may not be quite as bad, but I think that you need those players to at least get some type of start building some type of accurate model. I give them my say. Someone else might come along and say, "Well, hang on a minute, you're forgetting this. It's not quite that doom and gloom." But that's my point. I don't see how they can possibly model up this. How things could stand up.
Let's say your prediction is actually accurate. I want to sort of take that world. But is there what is there the possibility that because of the poker ecosystem, and you're absolutely right, the poker ecosystem is a very complicated thing. It's very only it's a very own economy, and it's very difficult to model. But is it possible that doing nothing would very similarly result in kind of a slow death for Amaya and for PokerStars, and that this is by taking sort of a very aggressive action that this is what they're trying to avoid, is dying the slow death by high stakes regs and elite poker pros?
Well, it's difficult for any of us to answer because we don't actually have the financials that people at PokerStars have access to. All we can do is sort of speculate on, what is a balanced poker environment? And I think you'll probably all agree that, whatever balanced poker environment means, there has to be profit for the poker site, because if there isn't profit for the site, it can't exist. And there has to be profit for a certain percentage of players, because if there aren't any players that make money on the site, then it can't exist either. So I think we agree that I think everyone would agree that
sure.
Just
one sec on that. Maybe you can clarify this for me, because people play the lottery and people play. I understand poker is completely different than that, but if it becomes something like that, people.
Yeah, but that doesn't require liquidity of other players. I mean, you don't need to have, it wouldn't be much fun and very successful. But you could run a lottery and have one person buy a ticket. You can still run that lottery. You can't do that with a poker site.
Okay, fair enough. Steve, do you think something needs to be done? Do you think there needs, and if so, is there something out there short of what they did that you think might work?
Well, like I say, without seeing the financials themselves, it's very hard to say exactly what needs to be done. The numbers that Daniel spoke about on an interview I saw that was posted up earlier today, he mentioned that the average new player deposits $20, and that their deposits were being spent 20% faster than in previous years. Now, to start with, Daniel hasn't been given raw data which he's looked at himself and come up with those facts. They're clearly facts that have been given to him by the people at PokerStars to present a certain picture. So when they have their spokesman saying, we don't have a sustainable system, a sustainable model, something needs to be done, well, is that true? I mean, you've just been given these simple facts. Those facts alone don't really they don't really mean anything. They also sort of imply that the reason why people are spending their money 40% faster these days is because winning poker players are taking their money. Whereas in reality, we know that poker players as a whole now are taking less and less money out of the game. Not just as a percentage of the net deposits, because they've obviously gone down. Sorry, I was going to say not just as a collective sum of the money that they take, but also as a percentage of net deposits. More and more money now is going straight to PokerStars than it was before. So I would question how unsustainable the current system is, because from where I'm sitting, most of the money is going in PokerStars' pockets anyway. I don't see how a site, I know they have, obviously there's lots of expenses, but I don't see how their expenses are that large in comparative to the amount of money that they make from the games. So I don't know what needs to be done. My guess would be that not actually much needs to change. And the reason for that is because by changing anything, you suddenly end up with this system where there are virtually no winning players. And how can that possibly be the model that you're striving for, a model that could work, unless you're trying to take it to down a casino-based route?
Right. I have a question that's sort of a two-parter. So suppose no changes are made, and we can assume that PokerStars continues along their path for 2016 and beyond. What is sort of the life expectancy of a good poker pro going forward? Like, what do you expect? I mean, my sort of prediction is that the sort of middle class poker pro is pretty much ought to go get a job now, and maybe the very elite will survive. Do you have thoughts on that? And I guess the second question is, if they were to somehow reverse this trend a little bit and provide more rake back they were, how much longer does that create how much more longevity is there for the professional?
I think basically this conversation is going to take us down a different route now, because I think to start with, I mean, the games have been getting progressively worse over the years, and to some extent that's to be expected because of the amount of education that's in the games now, together with the back in obviously 2011, where the player pools were separated and made smaller, and then regs moving out of the states and playing, so the games got tougher, and then other taxation coming in and whatnot. So obviously the games have been getting progressively worse. But if that's all there was as outside factors on the conditions of the games, then I could see it basically possibly have reached the lowest point it's going to reach, and then you would hope that henceforth the games would remain at this standard. However, as I say, there's an outside factor that has big implications, and that is the introduction of intelligent software. That is the one thing, the whole time I've been involved in poker, you keep an eye on everything, and you try and make predictions of how long the games can last. And I've always been pretty optimistic until recently, until this year, when you see the advances that even a piece of software like PokerSnow can do. It's not going to take someone with a little bit, and I'm sure it's out there. I know some people have spoken on other podcasts about they haven't been explicit with what's out there, but there's obviously already software out there that can do far more than what it should be allowed to do, and I don't know how preventable that type of software is.
Yeah, I wanted to get your take on the crackdown or the implied tightening on third-party software that they say is coming in 2016. PokerStars said that in their press release as well, that they're going to continue to crack. Is that something that you see as a positive?
Yeah, I think it's important to differentiate between different types of software. But overall, it's a positive. Firstly, if we talk about the type of software that they're basically talking about, which is the two pieces of software you're going to hear most commonly spoken about are HUDs and seeding scripts. I think it's going to be a benefit for practically everybody, apart from the actual developers of the software themselves. But I think there's some misconceptions out there by a lot of casual players. And it's certainly a misconception, I think, that PokerStars have been able to use as a bit of a smokescreen up till now. Firstly, seeding scripts, what they do is different. They basically enable one reg to get an advantage over that other reg on who has the best position at a table versus someone that's likely going to be giving their money away. It doesn't really affect within half a second. It takes 5 seconds. I mean, seeding scripts are going to save regs money themselves because they can cost quite a lot that they have to pay every month. It's not going to make much difference to the casual player. Regarding HUDs, again, that's, in my opinion, and I'm just talking as a cash player, I don't know if it's more of an advantage to a reg over a fish in tournament games, but certainly as a cash player, it's really limited, I think, the amount of extra information it can give you versus a fish. I mean, I'm probably the least efficient reg out there for using HUDs. I mean, I never look at HUD. I look at how often someone puts money into a pot, how often they 3-bet, and that's pretty much it. And when it comes to playing against fish, you don't really need a HUD as long as you know they're a fish. So there's that advantage there that it could give you that more immediate knowledge to hand by as soon as they sit down. Oh, your HUD tells you they're a fish. However, having said that, as long as you have the ability within the client to make notes, then you should pretty much know they're a fish anyway, because you've either got a note on them already, or if you don't, and you haven't seen them before, and you're regging those games yourself, then you can pretty much assume they are. So HUDs, as far as helping fish, casual players survive, it's not going to make a lot of difference. It will help the perception of the game. People, from the people I've spoken to that play live, they might chat with casual players, and the topic of HUDs often comes up, and I think it's seen as a deterrent to a lot of these players. They don't really know what they are, they just heard of them. They probably get it all mixed up with all the other bad press that they've heard that goes on in poker sites. They probably just associate it with some form of cheating or some sort of super weapon that players have that enable them to take money off of them. So I think the people that will benefit most from the HUDs going would actually be the better regs themselves, and the people that will lose a bit of an edge will be the sort of mediocre regs that rely on them. But so as far as those two basic types of software go, I think it's a good thing that they get eradicated. However, then there's the other problem of how do they enforce that ban? There's enough speculation about how people can screen scrape and use HUDs, black market HUDs or whatever on a different computer by them. So it's very hard to know how they can properly police it.
Right. Well, Mike, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate your insights. And for those who want to follow along with all the discussion in News, Views, and Gossip, you post as MeleaB. Is that right? Is that how I pronounce it?
Yeah, that's right.
MeleaB, and quite active in the large thread that's at NVG right now. So if you want to get some more Mike's insight, he's lots of detailed and graphs, a lot of graphs.
Yeah, I like my graphs. It's actually in the Internet Poker Forum. It's not in
Internet Poker Forum. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Head on over there. There's a big, long, and some very insightful discussion that's going on over there. I appreciate your time, Mike, and if we get more developments and stuff, we'll definitely try and get you back on to talk more about it. I appreciate it.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Thanks, Mike. A couple of things. First, I'm not sure I agree with everything. I think, as far as the modeling goes, it's sort of hard to assume that Stars doesn't really have any idea how to properly model with all the data that they have. I understand he's got that the people who play high volume that he was just talking about have a lot of insight as well. But I think the Stars, do they have poker people there to interpret it? I think they do. But again.
Yeah. It is a really difficult economy model because he did point out the interactions among players, and that's the kind of the thing that I really got out of it is that the interactions are really intricate between players because you don't have a lot of economic models are you fiddle with the X lever and then the Y lever moves this much and then the Z lever moves this much, right? But you've got a lot more working parts in a poker ecosystem. It's kind of more like a web than like an XYZ kind of graph where everything affects itself. But at the same time, yeah, I think you are right. I think they do have business intelligence people who are capable of modeling things like that. People with very complex, with lots of very mathy backgrounds.
But I want to make it clear, I was nitpicking there. He made some excellent points, and hopefully some people out there are listening, and even people that are reading the forums and can take in his viewpoint, because he does come from a viewpoint of playing many millions of hands. This guy, Mike has a great deal of knowledge when it comes to that. I just want to point out that I was just sort of nitpicking that one thing.
Right. Sort of but I want to touch on that. Sort of in an ideal world, you would have guys like him and the high stakes regs and the guys who are really good at math, and also, mentioned the access to information. Well, Amaya has access to information. They're not going to just share it with the players, about all of their data, and likewise, when even if you get the all the PokerStars employees and all of the Supernova elites and all the high stakes players together in the same room. They all have their own agendas. They all have different goals. The people on the Amaya on the PokerStars side, they're trying to maximize Amaya's and PokerStars profit, and the people on the player side, they're trying to maximize their own profit. So even when they work together, even if they did have this sort of goal of achieving together, they're still going to want to grab a bigger piece of the pie for themselves. So it's not an easy problem to resolve, but but yeah, in an ideal world, yeah, like you just take all the poker players and you take all of the data and you come up with some equilibrium solution that allows everybody to make money. But obviously in the real world it's not that easy.
And I want to step back for a second and just look at the overall picture again. And remember, we're talking about a segment of PokerStars client base. This is the cash games, right? Remember, we have cash games. As far as players' numbers go, you would probably have a better idea than me, T. But it seems like tournament poker is a much bigger thing. Are they going to not? Tournament players who play high volume also are going to see a reduction in their rewards as well. But I don't think this affects tournaments near as much as it does cash.
No, because it's never been. I mean, I think the predominant amount of revenue still probably comes from cash games.
And I'm talking about MTTs. I'm not talking about sit and goes, etc.
Yeah. But I think it's always been very difficult for MTT players to achieve like a Supernova Elite status anyway. I think it's been almost close to impossible to do it without playing a ton of sit and goes or a ton of cash games. I'm pretty sure that's always been the case.
I know that watching Jamie Staples all year, he's barely. I don't even think he's achieved Supernova, and he plays tons of MTTs every day.
Right. So not as big as an effect on people out there in MTTs, and not a big effect on people who live in the U.S. And I feel a little bit sorry for people listening to the show who are in the U.S. because this doesn't affect them very much, considering
they got their DFS talk.
They did, yeah, indeed. But anyway, let's move on. We're gonna talk about some other stuff. And in case you missed it here, I mentioned the other big story this week: the World Series of Poker, November 9, is this Sunday. And did you guys watch any of the? We haven't been really talking about the television coverage along the way. We've been talking about other stuff. We took last week off, but I did watch the coverage this week. Did you guys get a chance?
I've been following along. Sorry.
Yeah. You guys don't watch?
No, I've. Yeah. See, so when Adam says "you guys," we both take that as our cue to answer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Sure. Sorry about that. I should probably.
Especially when we're in the same room. But no, I haven't. I was been working on some writing stuff. I've been training a lot. I have not been watching coverage. I was actually really surprised that I was like, holy shit, it's this week. Well, it's basically next week that it's actually happening. It always sneaks up on me every year, but I definitely haven't been watching coverage. But I've been hearing pretty good things about it. I've been hearing that it's been pretty entertaining and that they've been doing a good job this year.
Yeah, it was, and it's fantastic coverage as always. Lon, Norm, the entire production team there do such a fabulous job. It's fun to watch. But we're going to get into World Series of Poker coverage with Max Steinberg. He's our guest in the second segment, so we'll talk about that stuff then. Just to finish up some, in case you missed it, stuff. Tell you we were off last week. The Poker Hall of Fame nominees. You and I both love this institution. Jen Harmon and John Jawanda both get in. Devilfish does not get in. The sentimental vote didn't come through.
Well, it's not really a vote. Like none of the people who expressed an opinion on it even had a vote. So the sentimental campaign did not get through. I think is probably the way to put it.
Who's to say if I can't imagine that John Jawanda isn't worthy of the Hall of Fame. The man's fantastic, great poker player, and has the results for a long time. Jen Harmon. We're left to rely on. What was going on in the big game? Yeah, she beat the big game for years. Well, who knows if she did or not? We don't really know that. Maybe she did. Quite possibly she did if people are saying that. But it's easy with Jawanda with its tournament success, etc., to gauge him a little bit better. But did you have a problem with any of them?
I mean, this is the thing. Like, okay, so it's basically, I think, Jen Harmon versus Devilfish, right? Because I think we argue very clearly that Jawanda, on the strength of his resume, like 100% is in. Like, The issue that I guess I have with all this is that there was a lot of people saying that the Devilfish not getting in is like this big indictment of the fact that the Poker Hall of Fame is very American centric, and there's so few non-Americans, and I don't see that as a thing. Like inducting Europeans for the sake of inducting Europeans doesn't really make sense. It's just about who is the more accomplished individual, I think, in poker, who's the most famous or who's the most character. I don't really have a strong opinion on whether Jennifer Harmon or Devilfish Elliott is that person. Jen Harmon, obviously, because she's a woman, gets sort of the bonus points for that, for being a woman in a man's world, and high stakes one that. And then you can argue also that the Devilfish, as a non-American, helped popularize poker in his home country and in all of Europe and all of that. So I mean, you can make cases for both, but it's certainly not something I have strong feelings about.
Yeah, I think the latter point is really good. I think Devilfish did. Let's face it, poker in England is. It's a strength of poker. English poker is huge, and I think a lot of those guys will point to one man, and that's Devilfish, because of the character he was on television for so long, for the popularity of poker in England. It's easy for us kind of over here in North America to kind of miss that. I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think that does get lost on a lot of people, how much he did for poker. Was he an unsavory character? Sure. Yeah. I mean, was he not nice to women sometimes? Yep. Does that disqualify him from the Hall of Fame? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's this weird nebulous formula that they pull off anyway, so who knows? One last thing. No, two quick things. Bryan Micon, we talked about it before. He had fled to Antigua. Of course, he was the chairman of Seals with Clubs, a Bitcoin poker site in Nevada. Had his house raided. The feds came in, knocked his door down, and he subsequently took off to Antigua with his family. Came back, made a plea bargain, and he got sentenced this week to 2 years probation and a $25,000 fine. It was a felony, reduced to a gross misdemeanor once he completes probation, according to the Las Vegas Sun. Seems like a pretty. I mean, I don't want to see the guy put in jail or anything, but if you're going to knock a guy's door down with a SWAT team and go through all the things that they went through, it seems like 2 years and $25,000 is the end result. Maybe their case wasn't as strong as they thought. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like the manner in which they arrest people ever has anything to do with like the severity. Like let's face it, the dude is like an internet nerd. That was all. They didn't need to bring in the SWAT team with the battering around. Like they could have just phoned him and said like, "Hey, come down to the station." Showed up.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy is not right? Like an international dangerous Jason Bourne level. It's Bryan fucking Micon. Right, Jesus. Right. Like you could have just sent like a teenage girl to send over there and
come
it would have been fine.
To the station. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's crazy what the militaristic police it seems like in the States for stuff like that. In case you missed it, accused World Series of Poker cheater Valeru Koka was cleared by the World Series of Poker and paid his prize money. You remember this, T, from the summer $10,000 head-up event where many players were convinced that he was cheating with marked cards, sunglasses, what have you. Nobody knew. They just felt that it wasn't right. The complaint was filed. His prize money, we didn't know. I don't think we knew this, or I don't remember it. His prize money was held, and a 5-month investigation was conducted.
I thought they paid. I could have sworn.
I thought they did too. Yeah, and apparently not.
Seems to contradict what the source here, but yeah.
I think the press release was from the Gaming Commission. Once issues were brought to our attention, we immediately commenced an investigation and worked cooperatively with the Nevada Gaming Control Board. So this is from Harris. The investigation that was performed has now been complete by all parties. At this time, the matter is considered closed, and the 5th place finisher in Event 10 will now have his funds released for payment. I don't know how they were ever going to prove that he did anything, given that, remember, back then they didn't have the decks to see if he had marked the cards or what have you. It seems like They were just kind of taking as much time. 5 months, really? Like, does it
Yeah.
take that long?
I would be really interested, actually. I mean, I know that the Nevada Gaming Commission. I would be interested to see if there's any sort of public report from the Gaming Commission that will be able to actually read, minutes from a meeting, something like that, any sort of evidence, or whether that all can completely stays behind closed doors in a locked filing cabinet somewhere. Because it would really be interesting to see what was, like, as you said, we don't know. Like, are there decks? Were there decks that were examined? Do we have any sort of evidence of this? Do we have tape of him doing things? Like, what exactly are we dealing with? Like, because all we really have here is there's an investigation and it was done, and it's been done on all sides. We don't know what any of that means. So
you're saying
really
that
nice.
You're saying that you'd like to embark on a poker version of Serial with me?
Ah.
Yeah, I would.
That's not a
yeah,
bad idea.
I will be the yeah. Yeah,
that'd be good.
Yeah, if we can get as much access to Valerio Coca as Sarah Koenig got to Adnan Syed, then
I'm down. Hopefully, the new Serial. I think they were doing a second season. I think it should be close to done by now. Hopefully, something will be coming out soon. All right, that's going to do it for the In Case You Missed It stuff. We had a lot to talk about there. Coming up after the break, we've got Max Steinberg. This man is going to be at the final table, the November 9, coming up on Sunday. Usually we have Matthew Hilger from the PokerStars VIP Club, or from PokerStars.
He's probably busy. He might be doing things. I don't know.
So Matthew, he's not available this week, and I know people out there are going to say what they're going to say, but this is true. I was talking to Matthew about scheduling for the show. Thursday was the only day he couldn't do. He could have done it Friday, but we couldn't do it. I couldn't do it Friday. I had committed already to doing the show on Thursday. He's out of town today, so he couldn't do it. But we are going to have him on, and he's going to answer as many questions as we like to throw at him. And hopefully some people will email us with their questions for regarding the changes to the PokerStars VIP Club. The email address to send those to is pokercast@2plus2.com if you have something you want Matthew to answer to. We've got the final table of the World Series of Poker this weekend, Sunday and Monday. So we're probably, I'm thinking if it's okay with you guys, we could do a show on Tuesday. And Matthew will be back because we'll have lots to talk about given that the November 9 wrapped up. And we'll get into more of the happenings surrounding the changes in the PokerStars VIP Club with Matthew, questions for him. He's committed to answer as many and any questions that we do have for him. He just wasn't available today. It's a couple days is going to go by and we'll get to them. So appreciate your patience with that. After the break, as I said, Max Steinberg, and we will be back. Oh, we have a strategy sponsor, a live poker training site, crushlivepoker.com by our buddy Bart Hansen. He trains you how to be good at the live pokers. Every week he sends in a minute or two about some little tidbit about how to beat the live games. This week he is talking about...
This week is reversed pot odds.
Reversed pot odds. Okay, he's going to give you a quick little lesson here. You're listening to the 2plus2 PokerCast presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. More right after this.
Hey everybody, welcome to another 2plus2 Strategy Minute brought to you by CrushLivePoker.com. I'm Bart Hansen, and this week I want to talk about something I like to call reverse pot odds. Now, what does reverse pot odds refer to? It refers to the pot odds that you are giving your opponent. And reverse pot odds are important when the pot gets really, really big and the effective stacks are really small at the end. Let's say, for example, the pot is $500. Your opponent bets $100 on the river and he has $100 left. In that particular situation, because if you move all in, he only has $100 left, and the pot will be $700 plus his $100, so it'll probably be it will be $800, $100 to call if you move all in. He's going to call with a much wider range than if he had more money behind. So this creates a situation where you can bet and raise for value much, much thinner because your opponent is going to be laid such a good price. So remember that when your opponent only has a little bit of money left, that you can make some, thinner value plays because your opponent is basically almost always going to call because of the pot odds that he gets. Now let's get back to the PokerCast.
At blinds 120k, 240k, it's folded to me in the cutoff, and I raise ace-king off to 480,000 with a stack of 14.6 million. Button folds, and the small blind 3-bets to 1.25 million with an effective stack of 8.9 million. I've played with the guy some in previous days. I felt he wouldn't flat call many hands from the small blind and was capable of getting out of line pre-flop. I 4-bet to 2.15 million with the intention to call his shove. He went all in, I quickly called, and he also had ace-king off. The flop came down with 3 clubs. I had the king club, but he had the ace of club. The turn was another club, and I doubled him up.
Team Pro Online's Marc-Andre French Dog Ladouceur is a Supernova Elite VIP. This is the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
Hey, poker fans, don't forget about the 2plus2.com digital magazine. Each month, a wide array of poker professionals and media write fascinating articles about the game you love. Want to learn about big blind versus small blind hand ranges? How about optimal Jeopardy daily double strategy? Topics like those and many others are covered every month. Head on over to 2plus2.com to see what the magazine has to offer this month.
Hi guys, it's Mike from ProfessionalPoker.com and the 2+2 store with some great news for our PokerStars players. You can now use your frequent player points to purchase gift cards available from ProfessionalPoker.com. These same cards will also work at the 2+2 store. The gift cards come in increments of $25 and $50, and you can apply multiple gift cards per order. Now you can get the books, videos, and ebooks from all the major publishers using just your FPPs. So check out the gift card section of the PokerStars FPP store and pick up the poker training material you've had your eye on for a while at the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com.
Okay, people, most of the kittens have perished. There are a few left you can save, though, and here's how to do it. Get involved with the PokerCast by emailing your questions, suggestions for the show, or even record a sound clip. Adam will be using the best ones on the air. Well, let's face it, probably the worst ones as well. I can see you there at your computer. Send an email right now. Totally disagree with one of Adam's takes last week? Send an email. Love last week's interview? Email. Want to know how much cash Adam has on him right now? Email. PokerCast at 2plus2.com is the address. Ship the funny to Adam today.
This week on the Under the Gun podcast, hosted by David Tuckman, Chris Grobe from the Online Poker Report talks about the legality of daily fantasy sports.
It's a really rapidly moving story, and some of these things are getting written in a hurry. The second is there's sort of a vacuum of competing information. You didn't really have the major sites out there telling the story. I didn't necessarily see the FSTA stepping forward and filling that vacuum. So in the absence of competing information, you're certainly going to run into a situation where, sometimes the path of least resistance is going to be, what's taken by the media. But
check out the Under the Gun podcast every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/tuckonsports or on crushlivepoker.com.
Welcome back to the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. This is the portion of the show where we bring in our feature guest this week. Terrence is a man who gave up the poker grind last year to grind daily fantasy sports. He banked a $27 NBA daily fantasy contest. First place was a main event seat in the World Series of Poker Las Vegas. Wouldn't you know, played his butt off and ended up at the November 9 starting Sunday. Max Steinberg, welcome to the PokerCast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. You, as I mentioned, you won your way in to the main event on a $27 daily fantasy NBA contest. First, tell us about that. It was must have been pretty. Was there a lot of people? Like, what was the entries like for that?
So yeah, it's a pretty top-heavy tournament. There's about 600 or so people in it. and it's only $27 to enter, and the main event entry is like a prize package. So basically, every single dollar that's entered just goes into first place. So yeah, it was a basketball satellite. I had played a few of the World Series satellites before, and it wasn't. I didn't do anything special. It was one of those nights where the Warriors just rested a bunch of guys, and I played a bunch of their backups that were now starters. I played DeMarcus Cousins and Kyle Lowry, who had a triple-double. And, I won by a significant margin.
So it wasn't a sweat. It wasn't even a sweat.
And I won my seat. But I obviously would have played the main event anyways. But it was nice to just, get a free seat, basically.
But so that changes the dynamic, right? Like, let's say you're going to go pop down 10K. Maybe you're going to sell off some of your action swaps. How did that change your approach to that?
I guess my mindset probably was a little different, given that I didn't actually have to physically put up the money. But I haven't really sold action in the past to the main event, and I wouldn't have done it this year, even if I didn't satellite in. So yeah, and I actually ended up swapping quite a bit throughout, like before and throughout the tournament, with players that I thought, hey, like, I'm kind of out of practice from poker. These guys are probably better than me, and I swapped quite a bit, and ended up not working out in my favor. So,
how does that work? So, for those that don't know, swapping, obviously, if Max and I are playing in the main event before the tournament starts, hey, Max, you want to swap 1%? Yep, okay. So we each have 1% of each other, but it's not only done.
He's not that rusty, Adam. He's not going to swap.
He's not going to swap me. It's not just done. Terrence, we already swapped. I have 1% of Max at the final table. You don't know this?
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't play.
Investment decision.
Yeah. Anyway, so it doesn't just happen before the tournament. This will go on during the tournament as well. And obviously, Max went very deep and had a lot of opportunities, I'm guessing, to swap with people. Give us your take on sort of how you do that mid-tournament.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go into detail of exactly who I swapped with.
No. I mean, sorry, just the process. Like
Right, exactly. So mid-tournament, there's a couple times where on day 4 or day 5 where there were just particular players that I knew or just were acquainted with, and we had similar chip stacks, and we happened to run into each other, and we just had a conversation and thought, hey, do you want to swap like 2%? And I did that actually a few times as I got deeper and deeper into the tournament. And then, obviously, out of all the people I swapped with, I was the only one who made the final table, so I don't have any kind of thing where I actually have a piece of anyone. But yeah, it just sometimes you just get in a spot where your chip stacks are close enough where it just makes sense, and obviously, you'll trade 1 or 2% for a chance at having 2% of someone at the final table. So it just seems like a good idea.
Do you ever get turned down, like, hey, want to swap? Nah, I'm good, kind of thing? Like, does anybody can they look back and go, damn, I wish I'd have swapped with Max?
So no, but there's one guy that is a very good tournament player who I swapped with who was real stingy about it. There were times where our chip stacks were close, and we had discussed, well, hey, if our chip stacks get close, let's swap. And like our chip stacks got pretty close. I was a little less than him, but they're pretty close. And he sort of like still was refusing to do it.
It's like, I'll swap 0.96% for your 1%.
Right, exactly. And then eventually we did end up swapping. But it's possible that he could have cost himself the swap by just being so stingy about it.
That's funny. Do you have to make any sort of mental conscious effort not to sort of change your play, or is it basically you've got so much of yourself anyway that it's not going to affect your play regardless?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
If you get in a pot, for example, with somebody that you've swapped a couple % with, is there any sort of conscious effort to not make any different plays, or it just doesn't matter at that point?
No, it doesn't matter. In fact, I got into probably the biggest pot of the day happened against a person that I swapped with, so it wasn't really in my mind. It's just a few %. So.
Max, I want to ask 1 or 2 daily fantasy sports questions, and I can hear everybody out there rolling their eyes. Before we're going to get to mostly poker.
Like every interview I do now is like 75% daily fantasy questions and like 15% poker questions.
Okay, it's going to be the other way around here. But
okay.
I want to get your take on, first of all, the recent events in daily fantasy sports. You obviously were an online poker player and lived through Black Friday, the disaster that was. Something similar, I wouldn't say it's the same, happened recently in daily fantasy sports. We talked about it on the show. How optimistic are you for the industry to thrive in the U.S. in the coming years, months, years?
I would say that I'm optimistic. I think it's different than poker just because we have a situation where there just seems to be a lot of momentum behind it, and also the fact that it's explicitly legal federally. But I seem to just read encouraging things like all the major sports commissioners are totally for daily fantasy, and that's got to be real huge because that's just a ton of money behind it. So I'd say I'm optimistic that it's. I don't think many other states are going to follow the route that Nevada took.
I read that you thought there was only maybe 100 full-time sort of nosebleed daily fantasy guys who were making a bunch of money. First of all, is that right, what you said?
I would say a year ago that was true, but not anymore. It's grown exponentially. I mean, I think that this was the year that a lot of really smart people started to understand how much money could be made just playing this.
Yeah. And then I wanted to ask one last question. How did you approach DFS when you first started? Were you like, okay, I'm a sports guy, I know all these baseball teams inside and out, the players, their tendencies, or were you like a math guy? Okay, I can just look at all the stats that I get for baseball and model them.
Yeah, so first of all, I'd say that I was really nitty to start. Like, I started at the beginning of 2014. In 2013, I had a really good year in poker, so I had, some money that I was willing to invest, but I'm sort of just a really big nit when it comes to things like this. So I started with $1,000 and just didn't really add to my bankroll more than that, and just tried to grind that up. But and I started during basketball season, and I would say that I have a more mathematical approach. Is I don't know sports that well. Like, I've always been a sports fan, but I don't know the mechanics of basketball or what makes a good matchup or anything. So I almost exclusively use statistics, and so I would say that I'm definitely more of a math-oriented type of person when it comes to this.
Thanks for indulging the DFS questions. You come into the final table fifth in chips. You have 20 million in chips. I believe 200, 400 are the blinds. Is that right?
Yep.
200, 400 are the blinds. Given that you're busy with daily fantasy sports, right, since the break, I would imagine there's been baseball, NFL, lots of different stuff going on. What's your preparation for the final table been like?
Yeah, so I before the final table, or before the main event, I was a full-time daily fantasy player. And so after the main event ended and we got down to 9, I just continued playing daily fantasy. And my best sport was baseball. And so there's baseball tournaments every day. So basically every day I'm just firing off baseball, and I wasn't really thinking of poker. And it wasn't until probably the end of September, early October, when I actually started focusing on preparing for the final table.
Wow.
And then obviously I live in Las Vegas, so we have this daily fantasy ban, a statewide ban.
Of course.
That was in mid-October. So then I was like, oh well, I guess I should just focus on poker right now, because this is coming up in 3 weeks. So it sort of has been. I went from basically not even for a month or a month and a half after the final table, I didn't really play any poker, to slowly building up. And then the last 3 weeks, I've been doing a lot more focused preparation. And I feel very, very prepared for the final table.
Oh, nice. Can you give us any insight in what you're doing? Like, are you just playing, cutting out the chips similar to what they are and getting some buddies together and playing, or is there other stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, I obviously I don't want to get too into
without
it,
details.
I already went public with this aspect is I have been doing online simulations. So I basically having the tournament structure exactly how it is, then playing it out with friends, acting as different players. And that's been sort of a key to my preparation. And I've been doing some other things, but I just rather talk about them after the tournament.
No.
The tournament, you know what I mean?
Fair enough. We'll have you on as the winner right after, and you can talk about all that stuff.
Yeah.
In 2013, you had a deep run in the main event. You ended up, I believe, in 130th-ish, somewhere in that range. But you had I remember in the television, you had the chip lead for a bunch of day 4, was it? Or in the middle there?
That's right. I was towards the top for a lot of day 4.
Yeah, and I'm curious, that obviously had to help. Were there some things that you did that time because you finished 130th that you wanted to avoid, or was 130th as good as you could have done under the circumstances in that year? Like, give me your take on 2013 main event as far as working towards 2015 getting to the final table.
Yeah, I would say that on day 5 I made a couple of mistakes that I regret. And I think I did learn some things from that run that definitely helped me this year, which is one is it's just once you get into the money of the main event, the play just starts getting really, really straightforward and scared. Maybe not like just into the money, but once you're, past the latter half of day 4 and day 5, it just people start playing real scared money. They're real straightforward. They don't want to make a mistake, and it's a different type of poker than you're normally used to. And so I think I learned from my run in 2013 just how to react to that and how to take advantage of that. And the other thing is just you can be really patient in the main event and pick your spots, and you don't really have to take any marginal spots, especially as you get deeper and deeper, where you don't want to risk getting 30th when you could basically guarantee yourself like 18th if you just continue to play tight.
Yeah, I think this year it felt like more than any. I've never made a day 5 in the main event, but I usually follow the coverage, and it seemed this year more than ever people were really surprised at some of the really conservative lines that people took. But you're saying that's actually your experience. Both of your deep runs, people take really conservative lines. Is there the temptation to just try to exploit this a little bit, or are you also similarly kind of falling into line with everybody else? Like you said, you can getting 18. There's a significant difference when you're talking between top 15 finish and a top 50 finish.
Yeah, I'd say, one thing that comes to mind is just watching the main event coverage and watching Chad Power play, because he was seemed to be really conservative pre-flop, especially in position. And it sort of surprised me, but it seems like that seems to be more of the norm nowadays, where pros are just sort of playing passively and conservatively when they get deep and not taking marginal spots for their stack, which I think is smart. But I'm a guy who likes to apply pressure, so I'm definitely more of the type who I think there's a fine balance. There's some places where you want to take a conservative route, and there's some places where you really want to apply pressure, and you just have to figure out which is which. But what the thing you don't want to do is just sort of like really build a pot that has like a marginal edge, like it's sort of be like 3-betting or 4-betting, where it's just a really marginal spot to do so with a marginal value hand, because you just end up bloating the pot, where you could have just taken a more passive route, saved your stack, and maybe lost like a very small amount of equity.
Yeah, I think back to Mark Newhouse the last couple of years, taking sort of maybe the line that doesn't make sense and bloating a pot and making it big, and hoping that the guy just kind of would lay down his hand because, the pay jump's coming, that he's going to fold here even though my hand makes no sense.
Yeah, I Everyone rips on Mark Newhouse.
No,
I respect
he's got ball. He's got more. I mean, he made it to 9th both years. That's incredible. So his skill is there.
I would say so too. And also, but I just want to say that like it takes a special kind of balls to play like he does,
absolutely.
and I respect that for sure.
Yeah, no, he's got the biggest ones in poker for no question about it.
Yeah.
But So you also your bracelet. There's one person at this final table with a World Series of Poker bracelet. That's yourself. 2012. You won in another big field event, a 1K. I don't know how many people were in it, but I'm guessing it was a fair amount, given it was a 1K in 2012, back when people just poured into those things. So you've got a lot of good results in these really big field tournaments, and I know there's people out there who play multi-table tournaments, and when they get in these big ones, they it's, oh my God, I have to beat 1,700 people. I don't know how I'm going to do that. But you're saying, give us maybe some of the things that you think more about in huge field events.
Yeah, I would say that I don't really approach big field events and 300-person tournaments much different. I actually don't approach them differently at all. I think it's just all the same to me.
Yeah, mathematically it's the same anyway. So.
Yeah. And I mean, you definitely sit down in a tournament with 3,000 people or 6,000 people, and you don't think that you're going to win, but or you don't think you're going to cash. But when you get deep, then I don't know. It's like the fact that thinking that you're going to cash in a 6,000 person event and not thinking you're going to, it doesn't matter. You just, it's 4 days of a poker tournament or 5 days of a poker tournament is just a huge collection of a bunch of individual hands that you play. So I don't know. I don't think any differently when I see thousands of people in one event as opposed to 100.
You entered day 7 of the main event this year, 24th out of 26. I believe after a squeeze gone bad on the last hand of day 6. Is that right? Can you talk about that hand and tell us what your thought process was going into day 7?
Yeah, so I had what was in hindsight, I think, a really just horrible squeeze at the last hand of the main event, where I just don't think that it was against Negreanu and Cannuli, and I just don't think Negreanu's opening wide enough, or Cannuli is even flatting his raise wide enough for me to be squeezing as a bluff at all, let alone with like an offsuit king. So I was really, it was just a brain fart, and I was really pissed off at myself after that. And, my main event run was basically like every day it was like hit a sat, get paid, like just get just a ton of really great hands. And it wasn't so much of like getting really lucky in the sense where I get it in, be 10% to win and win. I just recognized that you're just not going to hit like 3 sets a day in these tournaments every day. I was just being really fortunate in that way. And after that hand, I was just feeling like, it's so much luck to get this far. Like I just really felt like that luck wasn't going to last. And I felt just it was kind of like despair. Like I just screwed up my opportunity. But luckily I had a day, a night to sleep, and a morning to just think about it. And obviously it's not hard to kick yourself in the butt when it's the main event and there's 27 people left. And I was able to just convince myself, look, just you have one shot. It's a decent shot, and just play your best and see what happens. And that's what I did. And I was really fortunate to early in the tournament, early in day 7, just get aces against Negreanu and double up. And then I really just got a great run of hands and played pretty well, and just chipped up a lot.
So the strategy is run
get
like
aces
God and get paid. Don't try to make fancy squeeze. Do you think the fact that it's pretty much the end of the day, did that play a role in maybe consciously, maybe subconsciously in your decision
to do this, to pull the squeeze,
to make the bluff there? Do you think you would have done it if there were 2 hours left in the day?
Yeah, I honestly do not remember exactly what I was thinking. I knew I felt like Cannuli was calling that hand wider, and that actually sounds like something that I would think of, like thinking that people are just going to fold in the last hand of the day just because it's like very close to the end of the day and no one wants to bust out right now. But yeah, that could have been part of my thought process. I honestly just don't remember.
What? Give me you're a fit guy. I've seen you on TV. It looks like you're in pretty good shape. You're somewhat of an athlete, I think. I saw you playing golf. Now, Max, I saw the golf video on ESPN, and apparently you finished 6th in the state golf championship in Iowa back when you were in high school. Now, I've taught some golf, Max. That's not a 6th place. How many people showed up to that tournament is what I want to know.
Okay, so here's the misunderstanding. So I individually did not finish 6th. My team got 6th,
okay.
And I was probably the 5th. I was probably the 4th or 5th best player on the team. But yeah, I mean, it's Iowa, right? So Iowa, it's freezing cold. Golf isn't the most popular sport there. And so it wasn't like, it wasn't like I was somehow with that horrible swing that I'm somehow like a scratch golfer. I'm not a scratch golfer. We played on a pretty easy course. I think I shot like 84-77 or something.
Yeah.
Over the 2 days at the state championship, and our team got 6th out of 8 teams. So we were basically a state participant.
Yeah.
But
you must have laughed when Norman said that.
Yeah. I didn't think much of it because in my mind I'm thinking, like his team got 6th in the state, but then a bunch of people were like, "Dude, there's no way you got 6th in any state." And so I'm glad I have a platform to clarify this because funny, I definitely am not like I wouldn't be the 6th best golfer in any state.
Sorry, I was getting to a point there. You seem like you're in pretty decent shape. I want to get a gauge on, people talk about how an endurance test, the main event is, and going deep and going that deep that you've obviously made it to the final table and playing late those days. And if you could first of all on your state of mind at the time, like how tiring it was for you, and then maybe talk a little about the fact that we have 2 guys in their 60s that went deep, and there's always been this talk about the fact that no old guy's ever going to win again. Well, we got 2 of them at the final table.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what it was like on day 7 for Pierre and Neil, because personally for me, and I've talked to other people who've gone deep in the main event, I really had trouble focusing and thinking straight. And it's not as much about like not being able to play your best or think deeply on a poker level, but just really simple things like looking at someone's bet and just not being able to figure out how much this person bet or how much is in the pot or how much you bet the street before. It's really tough because you've just been playing for so long, and everyone is really tired, and I just cannot even imagine what it'd be like if I was 70. It must have just been impossible. So kudos to both Neil and Pierre for making the final table, because it's much tougher for them than probably I could ever imagine or any of the young guys could imagine.
How many hours of sleep are you getting a night as you're getting on, after day 4, day 5, day 6? I'm curious.
Yeah, so in 2013, so I've always been a person who sleeps really well no matter what the situation is. And so in 2013, I think it was day 4, and we sat down at a table and someone cracked a joke like, "Hey, everyone get good sleep last night?" And everyone laughed, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I did." And everyone laughed again. And I didn't say anything more, but I realized, oh my God, no one is getting sleep right now, I guess, because they're so freaked out. But I was just sleeping fine. I don't know. I just am a weird human, I guess. But I was even, it's not like I wasn't feeling anxiety or nervousness. It was just, I don't know. I just am able to get to sleep. But that being said, you get home at 1:30. And if you go to sleep immediately, you probably get to sleep at 2, and then you have to wake up at like 9:30. So you're still getting less sleep than you want.
Yeah, I made day 5 once, I think, and it was The problem was I could sleep anywhere. Like, I'm asleep before the wheels are up, and when I'm in a plane, I can sleep literally anywhere. But I was so wired when I got back to the hotel. I couldn't wind down. It was just that was the issue for me.
And then also, you're also tempted to like look at poker news and see what they're saying. I mean, I admit that I'm tempted to do that, but you have to just like shut your phone off, like just make sure you get to bed.
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not the only one who like goes on poker news. See, make sure they got like the picture of me. It doesn't make me look terrible.
Everyone does it. If they're saying they don't, or if they say they don't, they're lying.
Interesting group when you got down to 15 players or so. Daniel Negreanu, you mentioned already. I think you played a fair amount with him, right?
Yeah, I played basically all of day 6 with him and the start of day 7. I played quite a bit with him.
And what was that like? What was your take on him? Now he's gone. You can tell him what your take is now. I don't want to ask you about the people who are still alive, but Daniel obviously played a bunch with. Give us an idea of what you thought of his play and what you could do to play against him.
Yeah, it's hard to give like an overarching description. I mean, Daniel, he plays pre-flop pretty tight and solidly. I guess he sort of had the reputation back in the day for having a quote-unquote small ball style, but I feel like everyone plays that same way, so it doesn't really appear any different than everyone else. And he clearly plays really well. He's really talented. I would say that I didn't agree with everything that he did, but he also probably did things that I wasn't capable of doing. So it's definitely a very good player.
There was a lot of talk about Stealth Monk, Justin Schwartz's behavior. You were with him a fair amount, I believe, as well. Your take on some of the stuff he was doing, and did it bother you at all?
I haven't been at the Thunderdome before. I'm not Daniel Negreanu.
Was that just him in the background? Yeah. I played with Stealth Monk basically all of day 6. And so I would say that the editing of the ESPN footage sort of made it seem different than what it was. So it seemed like he was basically getting to a controversial type of like action or whatever, doing something controversial like every other hand, which was not true. There's just the 2 hands where the one where he made that shoving motion and it seemed pretty out of line. And then there's the one where he called the clock on Buderoni after what I thought was like 3 minutes, when I felt like in that spot he should really be getting like over 5 minutes, if not like as much time as he wants. I mean, it's the main event. We're really deep. I think everyone would agree that people should get a lot of time. But it was tough to play with him just because he talked so much. I mean, he just would talk and talk and talk, and he'd try to talk to me or talk to Daniel or talk to anyone and just try to have a conversation. And personally for me, like, I don't want to have a conversation when I'm in day 6 of the main event. And he just sort of just wouldn't take a hint and just would keep talking. And I don't know if that was just his plan, like he's trying to annoy me, or he's just unintentionally doing that. But that was definitely tough. It's tough to focus when someone's just trying to talk to you all the time. But I wouldn't say that he was unfairly portrayed by ESPN, because he gave them just all the material that they needed to portray him in the way they wanted to portray him. But I just think he was different than he was portrayed on the telecast.
It seems like, I got the opinion, or I got the intention that they didn't like him. The ESPN guys didn't like him, and that's fair enough. Obviously, it bothered them. I think one of the things that probably bothered him was when he's talking so much, he talks over the other people that they want. Like in the middle of a hand, he won't be in the hand, and he'll be talking, and the ESPN cameras want to pick up the table talk amongst the 2 guys that are talking, but meanwhile, Justin's kind of jumping in there, right? So I think that
they're all individually mic'd. That shouldn't be a problem to edit out, I would think.
Well, I mean, you can just hear. Like if he's sitting next to you, you're still going to hear him, though, right? It's anyway, but it just seemed like that was the tack they took. But what did you think of the coverage, Max? I want to get your opinion as somebody who, like you said, that's the stealth monk sort of side of the coverage. But what about the overall coverage about yourself or about Daniel, or what was your take on how it went down?
Well, I'd say from just an entertainment poker standpoint, I think the coverage was really good, and I think obviously for me, I love the coverage because I think they portrayed me in a really good light, and I am happy because they could easily portray me in a really negative light. I mean, you can really just take whatever angle you want if you have enough footage of someone. So I was happy about it, and obviously they're going to portray Daniel as if he's like he's Jesus, like he can do no wrong. So
sure, of course. Yeah.
I'm sure Daniel was happy with the coverage as well. But, I feel for Stealth Monk just because, I don't know, I can see the hypocrisy in some of the stuff. Like, for example, it's portrayed that he does like the all-in shoving motion while Daniel's in a hand. And it seems like this weird, just completely out of line. But then Daniel in a hand against the Italian guy basically tries to convince him not to squeeze in the middle of a hand, which was kind of weirdly out of line, and you could have portrayed that in a different way, but it wasn't. And
interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, it's ESPN can portray things however they want. I don't know. I think that with Stealth Monk, he definitely, without a doubt, no matter what happened, he was going to be portrayed in the light he was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like getting away from the individual characters. I think the coverage was awesome from a poker standpoint. I think they showed a lot of interesting hands. They didn't get too much into just like side stuff or pointless things. I mean, they did do the side game championship or whatever, which I didn't totally enjoy, but maybe some other people did. But I know like some poker telecasts, they, like, for example, the WPT really sometimes just completely gets away from poker and just has a bunch of stuff that no one really cares about.
Right.
So I'm glad with the World Series that they, for the most part, just stick with the poker and let the poker be the entertainment.
Okay to ask you about one of those hands? Can we run one by you?
Sure, I might not answer, but
all right. It's the King Jack hand, and is that okay? That one okay to talk about?
I mean, you can go ahead. I don't know how much I'm going to be
sure.
able to say.
No, that's fair enough. King Jack, you open to 850 at 150-300. I believe you're seven-handed. Zvi Stern in the big blind flats with ace queen off. Flop King Jack 2 rainbow, so you flop top 2. Stern flops gut shot. He checks, you bet. He calls. Turns a 3 of spades, brings a backdoor flush draw, and it goes check, check. And I thought that was interesting. Given that, as you know, your take on Zvi, the river's a 7 of clubs. He bets decent size bet, 2.6 million, and you raise him to 8.5, and he snap folds. But I wanted to ask you about the check on the turn, if you're okay to talk about that. Why you checked it behind there?
Yeah, that's going to be something that I'm just not going to be able to talk about. But I think that when I can't really get into the specifics, but I think that when you're shallow enough stacked, you can get a little more creative with not doing something that doesn't really build a pot, because you can just basically get most of the money in anyway.
Gotcha.
So
right.
I don't really feel the need to. I don't feel like I have to bet there just for the sake of building a pot.
Gotcha.
Given that I'm most likely ahead, but
turns out you maximized, right?
Yeah, no, I wonder if he
or he shoves on the turn.
He's a pretty crazy player, so I'm curious whether he would have actually folded the turn or not. I could definitely see him go call turn with that hand and then like lead river on a blank or something. He's a pretty wild player, so.
One of the things, speaking of Zvi, in the live coverage when we were watching it all go down or reading about it, and was the fact that he was stalling a lot, and there was this perception out there, and maybe you can clear this up for us, is he was clearly stalling every time it was his move while the tables were two-handed, and Daniel was at the other table with Joe running it over, playing lots of hands, and Zvi was stalling. Was that the case? And if so, what did you make of that?
Yeah, so that actually was not the case. So what happened is Zvi is... So, like, you've seen with Joe, he really likes to stare at people, right? He likes to, like, stare people down. Zvi, I would say, likes to examine people. So he will sit there, and he will, like, sort of, like, lean up in his chair, like, almost getting out of his chair to really, like, look you over, right? And then once he's done looking you over, he'll now consider what he should do. So he's just very, very methodical, and just he really takes a lot of time before he makes any move.
And he'll do this even before he's looked at his hand?
I would say, yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I didn't play with him that long, but this is what I saw. So.
Right. But your take on it was not intentional stalling, then, is kind of what you're saying?
Right, and so here's why I'm sure it's not stalling. So
okay.
So people started getting really annoyed with him, right? And because he was just taking so long. And so once we get down to 13, where it would be a spot where definitely it's just advantageous for people to stall, he actually started playing faster. And then everyone at the table was like, what is going on? Because now we're happy with you playing slow, and now you're just like insta-folding hands and just playing really fast. And it was more the other people who started sort of, just taking their time before folding. So I think people are going to see this at the final table. He doesn't stall. He just really, really takes his time and examines his opponent before making a move. And it just takes a really long time.
Stepping back from being a participant in that, you were right there in the middle of everything. Do you think it was a mistake for Jack Effel to let that go as long as he did? He waited for a break to tell everybody we're going to go hand for hand. But in the meantime, it was, half hour, 45 minutes of one table playing basically twice as fast as the other table. I understand it was good for you, and that's fine. But do you think Jack maybe took too long in making that decision?
Well, now that you say that, I'm curious if he actually talked to Zvi and said something to him and expected maybe that would change things. Because there was a drastic change at some point where Zvi just started playing faster, and it was sort of surprising. So it's possible that he talked to Zvi and thought, okay, I'm going to talk to him, and this is going to solve the issue. But he didn't account for the fact that everyone else at the table is happy to stall as well. So it's tough to say. I think maybe he probably should have taken action sooner. But then again, it was tough. I mean, the way we were doing hand for hand was basically there was a tournament director at our table and a tournament director at the main feature table. And then they had to clear a path through the audience so each of them could see each other. And then basically, they just raise their hand when the table is done with the hand going hand for hand, and then he would yell, "Okay, next hand." And so it's sort of a really tedious process. So I'm not sure. It's sort of like a lose-lose situation. I wonder if maybe in the future they could do a thing where instead of playing towards the end, instead of playing certain timed levels, you play a certain amount of hands per level, but that would also be pretty awkward as well. So I'm just not sure what they can do about it. There's just no real good solution.
Well, one of the things that they've done in the past, I guess, is you could potentially play orbit for orbit, which is a little bit better, a little bit more equal
right.
to hand for hand, but not quite as drastic as forcing everybody to play the same hands.
Yeah, but then again, people don't want to wait around,
right.
If I was at the feature table that's getting more hands, I think I'd rather get more hands than have to wait 20 minutes sometimes, It would just it would be horrible.
One of the things that people were talking about was Justin, Schwartz, Stealth Monk, and Zvi with the hoodies and the bandanas and the sunglasses and basically looking like an Ewok at the final table, not showing any of their face. You've got your suit on and you're staring at these guys. Did it bother you? And do you think it's right? There should be allowed to do that.
Well, I mean, I don't think it. I don't know. I guess my first answer is, I can do the same thing, so it's not like it's unfair or something.
Right.
I just choose not to do it. I personally just have a really hard time wearing sunglasses at the table. Like, it makes it harder for me to see the cards, and I just don't like it, so I don't do it. And I think I'm experienced enough where it doesn't hurt me. But yeah, I mean, when you cover your entire face, it certainly is an advantage. You really can't get anything off of them in that way. So I think the face covering thing, maybe they should look into not allowing it. I would be totally okay with them not allowing sunglasses either. But that being said, it's such an iconic look in poker that I doubt the World Series of Poker would ever do that. But yeah, the facial covering is maybe taking it a step too far.
You're a math guy. I know you've probably seen the odds that are put out by Caesars. I know you're going to go right down there with $10,000 bricks and just hedge off on all the other guys, right?
No. Although, yeah, I mean, I actually, the odds are really interesting because it's funny that I would think that I would be the person probably most bet out of anyone.
Because you're 7-1, right?
I'm 7-1, and I'm the most known player, and it seems like a lot of people are betting on that. So I'm surprised that the World Series of Poker, or that the Caesars has me at 7-1. It actually scares me a bit. Maybe that I'm worse off than I think I am.
They think
because I would think that they just put it at 5-1 or 6-1 and expect bets to come in anyway.
You get the two old guys are 6-1. You're not even as much of a favorite as the two old dudes.
I know.
Well, you've just admitted to being willing to playing more hands per hour when you're at two tables with a huge money bubble. So obviously, you don't have any understanding of EV.
So they saw the Jack High call, probably.
That was it.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they're just overrating how people for some reason think I'm good. Apparently, I don't know why.
How do we not have
I read articles. They're like, "Yeah, I think Max is going to win," and I'm thinking to myself, how do you not think Joe's going to win? He's the best player, and he has 63 million chips. He has a ton of results. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm very good, but just Joe has a ton of chips, and he obviously is very good. So
he's 7-5. Zvi Stern 4-1. Two old guys 6-1. Canuli 12. Beckley 12. Patrick Chan 25-1, and same with Budaroni.
Yep.
Oh my God, Ross is just asleep at the wheel. 25-1 as well. There we go.
Hold on, who do you want to bet at 25-1?
Neither, nobody. No, I'm betting on you. 7-1.
All right. Hopefully, I make you proud, but you will see.
Indeed, Max. Good luck this weekend. Thanks so much for joining us and spending some time, and hopefully we'll get you back and get a post-November 9 wrap-up and on a little bit of rundown on how things went for you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, when I get ninth, I'll come back.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
All right, thanks, guys.
As we mentioned, Terrence, Joe McKeon, $63 million, Max with $20 million. But it's tournament poker. Anything can happen. A double up here and there, and you never know. He could make a run for the glory. He'd be a great ambassador for poker.
I was just going to say, I mean, it was a fun interview that we just did. I think he'd be a great guy for the media. Just a really well spoken individual, funny, self-effacing. The old wicked chops, good for poker, I guess.
That's it. Yeah.
Max Steinberg, I think.
All right, let's end it there. This segment, it's been long. We're going to come back after the break and get in as much as we can. Terrence doesn't have much time left. I believe you got some construction guys coming, so unless we want to hear the hammer for an hour and a half, I think we're going to have to quickly wrap it up. But you're listening to the 2+2 PokerCast presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. More right after this.
Hey guys, this is Bart Hansen for CrushLivePoker.com. Whether you're a recreational player who wants to compete at the tables or you're a professional and you want to increase your win rate, the material that I've produced at crushlivepoker.com will make you a better poker player. Act now and you can subscribe for free by using the coupon code TPC11. That's TPC for the PokerCast 11 and get your first month free.
Hey, it's Mike from the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com. 2+2 is pleased to announce the release of their most anticipated book in ages, Applications of No Limit Hold'em, a guide to understanding theoretical sound poker by Matthew Jonda. This book will give you the ability to create the bet sizings and ranges which will beat the better players. The theory in this book is not designed to be complex or abstract, but rather it's intended to be applied immediately, producing better overall results. Many confusing concepts, such as overbetting, balancing multiple bet sizing ranges, donk betting, and check raising as a pre-flop raiser, are crucial to a player's strategy, despite few players implementing them or talking about them. And after reading this book, you should be able to not only conceptually understand these ideas, but also know how to begin incorporating them into your game, and thereby successfully compete against tough opponents. And at the 2+2 store, we accept all credit cards, plus PayPal and NetTeller.
Attention everyone not named Alan Kessler. Have someone you would love to appear on the PokerCast? Have someone you don't want to hear again on the PokerCast? Head on over to the Suggest a Guest thread in the PokerCast forum at 2plus2.com, and Adam will do his best to make you happy. P.S. Chainsaw, you can post too. Hey folks, don't forget to follow the PokerCast crew on Twitter. Adam is at PokerCastAdam, and he'll keep you up to date on things like upcoming guests, listener contests, and all the latest bacon-related food innovations. Follow Ross at PokerCastRoss, and you'll discover new hip-hop bands and learn how to not play micro-stakes no limit. Also, give us a like on Facebook, where we post lots of photos and other nonsense.
Playing 50 big blinds deep with annies, the villain in the hand opens to 2.2x from the cutoff, and I defend my big blind with ace-3 offsuit. The flop comes ace-6-9 with 2 clubs, and I check call a free big blind c-bet. The turn is a free, bringing a second flush draw and giving me 2 pairs. And once again I check call, this time for 5 big blinds. The river is a 6 of clubs, completing the flush and counterfeiting me as well. I check and he bets 11 big blinds. As it's close to the worst possible hand I can have at this point, and I have full house blockers, I turn it into a bluff and check raise all in.
Team Pro Online's Mickey Moment Mori Peterson is a Supernova VIP. This is the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
The sweet wine of love is but a dream, and yet I yearn for more. The pocket of the heart contains the key.
Welcome back to the 2+2 PokerCast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. Terrence, fun interview with Max, right? I mean, he's just a guy you want to pull for in this final table format.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially if you're betting 7-1 on him.
It's Caesar's odds are always so terrible. You never want to, because you go online and you can find offshore stuff that's way better.
Yeah, you remember when Brian Hastings was, when they were down to 4 players, and Brian Hastings in the heads up rather, and then Brian Hastings was 2.5 to 1 somehow, or sorry, Brian Hastings was 3-1 with 4 players left, and that was sort of my favorite one.
Yeah, crazy. No Matthew Hilger this week. We'll have him in a couple of days, hopefully Tuesday night. But we're sticking to the Invitational for this week. This is the PokerStars Invitational for PokerCast listeners. The format for this week's show is going to be, this week's tournament is going to be 6 Max PLO. The password in honor of our IPWAF inductee is going to be Mr. Sweets 28.
Also his game of choice.
And his yeah, exactly. Mr. Sweets 28, all lowercase, all one word, or numbers and letters. That's not one word. Mr. Sweets 28. Numbers. Lowercase numbers, yeah, exactly.
English.
It's a $1.10 buy-in, and you can find it in the private tab of the tournament's lobby at PokerStars. $1.10, $500 added by PokerStars each week, 10 a.m. Pacific, and 1 p.m. Eastern time. So add that to your Sunday grind. Got the hiccups now. All right, so T, I know you don't have a ton of time to hang out for all. We got a bunch of mail because it's been 2 weeks, but we also have some Ross reports. So let's get to that.
Good old Roscoe. Sure glad he's all right.
Listen, boy, you gotta pick your spots good. You gotta make hay while the sun shines. Hey, good. Yeah, good. You dipstick!
It's time for a Roscoe Report.
Time for the Roscoe Report. Ross, you've been playing some live poker.
I have. I actually have a special guest for this week.
Oh, what do you got?
Hi, everybody. It's Adam from BigPoker.ca.
Wow. Where did you get that?
There is a listener named Brendan, I believe his name is. Sorry, I forget.
Oh, my God. That's got to be from our first year, man.
And he sent me a few training videos that Adam Schwartz
made
like 10 years ago.
I didn't even know Adam Schwartz.
10 years ago?
Brian Brannigan. He sent me a PM.
Oh, my God.
He said, hey, I have some gifts. They're probably... probably
is it limit hold'em?
Yeah, limit hold'em and high-low.
Oh, my God. That's just got to be hilarious. You need to post those videos. That'll just be hilarious.
I can. I mean, I actually learned from the high-low one.
Oops.
It was good.
Anyway,
right. So, yeah.
I love the start of your first hand, by the way. Playing five-handed at 5 a.m. That's the best start to a Ross Report hand.
Sounds like a poker poetry.
Playing five-handed at 5 a.m.
Five-handed at 5 a.m. by Ross Henry.
That should be a poker screen name.
This was the most tilt-inducing session I think I've ever played.
Oh, really?
Very frustrating.
Was it long?
It wasn't that long. I started playing at night, and then I just didn't want to end because these guys were in the game. But I had this old guy on my right who just could not miss. So
this is 125 PLO.
Yeah, this is 125, and the fun players on my right had been straddling, so I ended up straddling this hand. I don't usually straddle, but I did.
So his straddle is 10?
My straddle's 10.
His is 5, yours is 10. Okay.
No, it goes 1. It technically goes 1, 2, 10. But you have to call 5 in order to
Gotcha.
play. Yeah.
Oh, so there's one straddle. It's just you.
Just one.
The whole table. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So, I have about 750 behind. The guy on my right is said old guy. He's ran up a really big stack. He's really feeling himself.
I don't want to picture that.
feeling his ego. Anyway, so it limps to the small blind, who makes it 20. And the big blind calls. So I raise to 80. Everybody else folds back to the small blind, who calls, and the big blind calls.
So it's 3 of you to the flop.
Can I just say it's probably never ever correct for the small blind to min raise?
Oh yeah, with a straddle and a blind. Yeah,
it's pretty much always awful. But anyway,
yeah. Well, this is the type of game we're dealing with. So. The flop is 9-6 deuce.
So it's three-handed, right?
And I have... Oh, I forgot to mention that I have ace, jack, 9.
No, you mentioned it. Okay.
And I have...
You had aces. You wanted to mention it twice.
Yes. I had ace, jack.
So wait, you have ace, jack 9, ace, spades, jack of spades. So you have one flush draw.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
And the flop is 9-6 deuce.
Rainbow?
Yes. I might have had one backdoor flush draw. It's not relevant, though.
Okay.
So checks to me. I lead for 160 into a $280 pot. The small blind folds, and the big blind calls.
So you have, again, ace, jack 9. The flop is 9-6 deuce rainbow.
Yeah.
And you have bet 160 in a 280 pot. The small blind folds, the big blind calls.
Yeah. The turn is a 9.
Okay. It gives you the
me
triples.
Trips.
You have triples.
Not top best kicker of the triple cards.
Yeah.
The pot is 840. I have about 510 behind. I have, as I said, we have top trips. And with the board being 9-6 deuce, there are a lot of straight draws in play. So I figure the correct play here is to go all in.
Is that one of the biggest bets you've ever... I guess not the biggest. You've played this game a lot. That's still a fair amount of a chunk of change to throw out there.
Yeah.
Betting 5-10 into it.
But I think it's still pretty clear. I mean, I don't see any other play at all.
This is like, why is this a hand? This is a bad beat story, right?
Well, I mean, I talked about this hand with some other people, but...
Really? Was anybody saying you played it wrong? I don't know how.
Well, there was a few different situations that came up where I could have. I probably should have raised pot before the flop. I only raised to 80, and the guy ended up having deuce, Jack, queen.
So he turned a full house.
Yeah. So I was drawn pretty dead. I didn't fill up on the river.
So people are saying that you made a mistake by not raising enough pre.
Raising enough pre-flop. I can see that, certainly.
Yeah. I should charge him, I guess, if he's gonna call it with that hand. So okay, this second hand's a little bit more interesting. This from last night. The villain in this hand is a thinking player, probably one of the better players that plays in this game.
Okay.
I have ace queen 6-5 in middle position.
Double suited.
Yeah, and 2005 Adam says
under the gun you don't raise. You limp in there.
Oh God!
Oh, you've got a wealth of drops, don't you?
Yeah. So it folds to me, and I do raise.
Okay.
Sorry.
I love that we've got to the point in the Roscoe Report where he's apologizing for raising pre. That's so great.
I'm apologizing to 2005 Adam.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the button,
he's trolling you.
I know.
The button calls. Small blind calls.
Okay.
And they both have, I don't know, about the same as me or more.
Okay.
The flop is 7-5 deuce with the deuce of diamonds. So I have one backdoor flush draw, middle pair. The small blind checks, I check behind, and the button checks.
Okay.
Now the turn is a queen, giving me top and middle pair, queen of diamonds, top middle pair, and backdoor flush draw. The thinking player leads for 35. He's also very aggressive, so could be betting a wide range of hands. I decide to raise to 100 in position. The button folds, and he calls.
Okay, I want to ask you about that raise.
Okay.
When you check the flop, multi-way, when you're playing, what, 5-handed to the flop or something like that?
3-handed.
Oh, is it 3-handed? Okay, so still, multiplayer to the flop, 7-5 deuce, rainbow. Queen on the turn, he bets and he raises. Your range is capped. Well, you could have queen, obviously.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's capped at the nuts.
Yeah, it's capped at the nuts, but it's not likely, right? I mean, his raise there is the range he has there is a lot more than queen, right?
Yeah. He also holds a queen in his hand, so I don't, so he's sort of blocking the other guys having queen and queen 7 and stuff like that.
He could have checked a smaller set, but I don't think he's going to 3-bet me out of position.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too, right? But I think that's fine. I mean, I think I would probably just call here as well because I don't feel like being 3-bet, but I also see Ross's point is that you're just not going to get 3-bet almost ever here, really, because with the only hand that can actually 3-bet you is the nuts.
Okay.
And I have position, so if a card I don't like comes on the river, I can reevaluate.
Totally, yeah. Okay.
So the river gives me the nuts. It's a 4 of diamonds. So he checks, and I lead for 190.
Okay.
And he ends up tanking and looking very confused, which I was happy about. I was happy to confuse the thinking player. And he ended up folding.
Probably had pretty close.
I guess it's the thing is that how often are you going to raise the turn if you only have the ace of diamonds is the sort of interesting thing. Like what kind of hands that involve the queen of diamonds there. I might have even just
the ace
slammed it bigger on the river. The ace of diamonds. I might have even slammed it bigger on that just because, you are just sort of saying, like, I have nuts or nothing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too. I could have potted, and it would have been more polarizing.
I think that depends a lot on your past interaction with that guy. Like, how you've bet for value before against him.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was actually in a previous Roscoe Report hand where he bet 3-bet me on the turn, and I had third set, and I folded.
Interesting. All right. He folded.
He ended up folding. And, okay, so this third hand is a... wait, let's see what 2005 Adam has to say about that hand.
I mean, these players just... it's almost like they stand in line to give you the money here.
Oh, that was everybody in 2005 in Adam's defense.
That's fantastic. All right.
Okay, so I have ace, king 10 under the gun +1.
Under the gun, you don't raise. You limp in there.
But I raise.
Ace, king 10 with ace 10 of hearts, right?
Yeah.
And you what?
I raise.
Are you going to apologize?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
One call behind, and the small blind 3 bets to 60.
Okay.
He's a very, very active guy.
You have 800 to start?
I have 800 to begin the hand, yes. And yeah, so he 3 bets. He's very active. I've seen him take stabs at a lot of pots, call in speculative spots.
Okay.
So I repot to 215. The in-between guy folds, and he asks for a count of my chips and then calls. He has pretty much the same stack as me.
So you guys get 25% of your chips in pre.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the pot is 445. The flop is 965 with 1 heart.
Okay.
Why does it always have to come 965 when you have aces?
Yeah. It's a pretty crappy flop.
I'm sure it's come ace deuce before. We just don't get those hands, T.
Yeah, because they just check fold. So basically, my thinking on this flop is it's a shitty flop. But
he checks.
Yeah, he checks. He checks before the flop.
Oh, he checks blind.
He checks blind. Yes.
Okay.
So my thinking on this flop is that it's a pretty terrible flop, but I mean,
is what's in his range of 3-bet calling pre in small blind?
I mean, 3-betting out of the that's my thinking was when he 3-bets out of the small blind, he's going to have a lot more high cards.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. He could have 7, 8, 9, 10 too.
Could.
There's lots of guys that do it with that hand, right?
But I thought that if I check behind, I'm going to give up my aggression on this hand, and he's just going to be able to steal it away. So
what's your plan? I haven't looked at the rest of the hand, though. What is your plan if he raises in that spot on the flop?
I guess I just call off because...
So you're going to call off?
I mean, yeah, I'm not doing great.
So given you're going to call off, you're betting 215 into...
280.
Sorry, 280 into 445? Right?
Yeah.
T, what do you think of the bet sizing? Given you're calling off.
Well, yeah. I mean, given that you're calling off, I guess if you want to call off, you want to induce bluffs, right? But the problem is that every single bluff you induce still has a bunch of equity against you.
Right.
So in some sense, it doesn't really matter. Like,
true.
But yeah, because I mean, he's not just going to bluff with queen, jack, jack. I don't think.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So every bluff that he can possibly has some equity. So it's kind of gross. It almost doesn't matter, right?
Like 8, 9, 10 jack, 9, 10 jack, queen.
Yeah, exactly. Those all have a ton of equity. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I talked about this with another player, and we decided that potting is probably the way to go because we do want him to fold.
Right.
So, what ends up happening is I bet the 280, and he goes all in, and I call off, and turns a 6, and he looks disgusted, and
he's got 9-5.
He's got a straight.
The river was a 5, and he mucked his hand.
What? The turn is a 9-6-5 flop, turn 6, river 5, and he mucks his hand.
Yeah. So I'm guessing he had 9, 10 jack queen, 9. 10
no, he had 7s blockers or something like that. He had 7s blockers or 8s blockers, right?
Kings or something weird. Who knows?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I think if you're
so he's got 9, 10 jack
flop,
queen. Yeah.
If you're check shoving on that flop with no equity, it's 8s or 7s.
But he could have one pair with 3 live outs.
I mean, why are you trying to represent blockers when the guy when Ross 3-bets?
Oh, so did you turn your hand over before?
No, but
I thought he just mucked without seeing your hand.
I ended up showing. Well, it was pretty obvious I had aces.
He mucked without seeing your hand.
No, he did see.
What I thought had happened. That's why I was speculating 8s or 7s because even if you have top pair of 9s, then you're going to turn your hand over.
Gotcha.
No, he didn't turn it over.
He didn't say what he had or anything like that.
I turned my hand over, and he
and you shipped it.
Yeah, he threw his hand away.
What did 2005 Adam think about that?
Oh, 2005 Adam.
I mean, this guy's just completely out to lunch.
That needs to be remastered somehow.
It's not loud enough. But
maybe a ringtone.
You mumbled it.
It'd be a good ringtone.
Did you hear that one, Terrence?
I did not, but
No,
maybe
you can imagine.
He's mumbling. He says, "This guy's completely out to lunch."
All right.
Excellent.
That is the Roscoe Report for this week. T, do you want to do a couple of the mailbag? Or?
I really do want to do a lot of these mailbag. Unfortunately, I'm just out of time. Like, I got to go run out and like get a lamp so that this guy can install it and stuff like that. I really do want it. So save me some of that good mailbag. There's a lot of really good.
Why don't we save it all?
And I really enjoy doing the mailbag. I really enjoy answering the questions. But yeah, we ran a bit long this week just because we had awesome guests this week. Galfond, guy at the Northern 9, Galfond, math professor, all this good stuff we tried to cram into this one.
Are you doing your thank? You just did our thank yous.
There you go. Yeah, I just did that, so we can wrap the show even faster. Thank you to Phil Galfond. Thank you exactly. No, I would love to do the mailbag with you next time.
Okay, I'm going to do this. Let's save these emails. Ross and I could go through them, but it's a lot more fun to do them with you. If you're not here, you are going to play the main event in Macau. So if you're not here for next week's show, we're going to try and go for Tuesday. Right after the main event, and Matthew Hilger we want to have on to talk about the show. If you can't do it Tuesday, I'll save these emails until the following show, but please continue sending on your emails. We need all the submissions that we can get to read on the show and have some fun with, so please keep sending them into PokerCast at 2plus2.com. Well, maybe we should just do an email show one day. Just do all emails.
Yeah, we could do that.
Right? We could do that and pop that in there. Thank you to Phil Galfond, now a member of the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame. Much appreciated spending some time with us this week. Mike Brooks, Supernova Elite, MeleaB, he's known as on 2plus2. Max Steinberg, of course. Terrence, for joining us pre-lamp purchase. Much appreciated. Ross, for coming all the way out to the suburbs on the bus each week, and
it's a good ride. It's a different tribe of people out here.
Much appreciate that, and you listening at home, thanks so much for tuning in, downloading our show. It's important to download, even if you're not going to listen. Download helps our numbers, right? Just download.
Then delete it. Who cares?
Stealing that from Matthew Berry. Apologies to Matthew Berry for that. All right, thanks so much again. We will talk to you early next week.
Turn that sound off.
Yeah. MJ just texted me. That's pretty funny. Possible joke for old school listeners. You know who's really fucked? Sven the Porsche dealer.
That's good. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. I think enough people will definitely get that.
That's awesome.
Use that. That's really great. I like that a lot.
So let's change the opening to that. How about
Thanks for joining us. The 2plus2 PokerCast has been presented to you by the PokerStars VIP Club.